All right, I do believe we met quorum. The sign-in sheet is over by Luke. I just handed it to him. I do believe we met quorum, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to call the final meeting of the 54th session of the GPS Senate to order. We're going to start off today's meeting by approving today's agenda. I do believe I was expecting a motion to add the appropriations bill to the agenda. So do I hear a motion? Okay, so moved by Senator Stahl. Do I hear a second? Any objections? All right, and the motion passes. Do I hear a motion to approve today's agenda with that?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Any objections? All right, we shall move on. So we are going to be starting off today's meeting. Okay, we're not going to do that then. Okay, well, we will be at today's meeting having a discussion from the Chancellor Search Committee who has come here today. I will just take a moment to talk about how that's going to work a little bit, for I know we have some guests in the back of the room, and welcome and thank you for joining us today. So what our plan is we will start off by doing basically 30 minutes of the session in this room. And I will be prioritizing the senators. The senators will have to stay with the meeting for the rest of the night. But once we hit that 30 minutes, we're then going to ask everyone to move upstairs. We have an identical room on the floor above us in room 2001. I'm going to ask all of you to move up there for until 7:15, and then that's all we got. So I believe that should work, but we're going to move on and skip that for right now. So we are now, sure, I'll let you ask a question. Go ahead. Tell them to come here until you go upstairs, and then tell them to go upstairs, because I don't know what time it's going to be. Yeah. So we are now going to move into open forum. Open forum, if anyone, I did not have anyone sign up for open forum. Is anyone interested in speaking for open forum today? Going once, going twice, no. All right. So we then are going to move into the selection of summer governance. So I made a little bit of a slide to talk about this. So summer governance is the legislative body of GPSG over the summer. And we are, they do things like reviewing the standing rules over the summer, a lot of times discussing code updates, procedure updates, just stuff that we want to work on, potentially making, trainings, resources, anything like that. I believe, so the way that the nomination process will work is first I will ask for the nominations from each of the standing committees. I believe I have communicated with you all about those nominations. And then after that, I will also open it up for self-nominations for summer governance. And then that is for the 5 senators that will serve on the summer governance as the main committee. Additionally, we will then take nominations for the person who will serve as the president pro tempore, which is an ex officio position. So there's basically going to be 6 people in total. So I'm going to start off by asking each of our standing committees, I'm not going to call on you, if you can just raise your hand, for your nominations for summer governance, please. Go ahead. Can you do the microphone and your name and stuff? Thank you.
From appropriations, Samantha Beck.
Are you nominating yourself? You're the appropriation. Great, thank you. Okay, so Senator Beck is the nomination for the Appropriations Committee. I saw a hand over here. Go ahead.
William Blair for School of Information and Library Science. I'm representing ONA today and nominating myself.
Perfect, thank you. Other hands? On Zoom? I know we talked about more people. Travel awards, R&J, anybody?
For travel awards, we nominate Alice Woolard.
This is Fernando Quijano. I can't see it, or oh, there we go. Okay, Fernando, go ahead.
Fernando Quijano, Business Administration,
We
PhD.
can't hear you. Oh, unfortunately. Let me see if it's on my end. Um,
Can you hear me now?
we try speaking.
I'm a pharmacy student here and our Zoom connection has not worked for the last 3 days. So if they could put it in a chat, maybe. But the Zoom has not worked in this room for like 3 days.
I'm sorry, I cannot understand you. Do you mind
Oh.
raising your hand to be recognized? And
Oh,
when
yeah.
while I do this, and then we'll come back to the
Okay.
question.
Alright.
Fernando, will you try one more time?
It's Fernando Quijano. Can you hear me? Fernando Quijano, can you hear me?
Oh, I didn't understand that. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were, I see. I did not understand. Okay, that stinks. Okay, until we do that, Fernando, do you mind putting that in the chat? And we will try to figure that out. Because it sounds like those on Zoom can hear, and we just cannot hear you all. So it's something on our end for sure.
Can anyone in the room hear us? If you guys are talking, we can't hear you.
For those on Zoom, we're working on a workaround so that we can hear you. This will take just a moment.
Okay, thank you, Josh.
Fernando, could you please try again?
Can you hear me now? Nope.
Fernando, sorry, can you try again now?
Can you hear me now? Oh, there we go. 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 There we go.
Hey, Fernando.
This is Fernando Quijano, Business Administration PhD. Oh, perfect. I self-nominate myself from the R&J committee.
Okay. I'm gonna have to hit unmute a million times. Thank you, Fernando, for your nomination for summer governance for J committee. Okay. Do I hear any other nominations? Senator.
I believe you already have your nomination. Finance, yes.
Pre-nomination.
Point of order, we hear a massive amount of echo on Zoom.
Wait, why is everyone saying that? The echo's still It sounds, is that better? Is that still an echo?
Yeah, we still have a lot of
In chat, echo. Does anyone in the room have Zoom on their computer and is not muted? Luke. Okay. That didn't fix it. Oh, okay. They were pointing at you. Okay.
Hello, those on Zoom, please make sure you're muted. Every microphone in this room is muted. To clarify, those on Zoom, you can hear us without an echo.
Yes, no echo.
Yep, no echo. Can you hear us?
Yeah, that's a real question. Can you guys hear us in the room?
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't know what we'll try to figure it out. I think in order to keep everything moving, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have someone monitoring our chat for us. And if someone, basically you need to still raise your hand and I still need to call on you on Zoom. We're not just gonna read the whole chat. So don't do that because we're not gonna do it. But if you raise your hand and I call on you on Zoom, you put your message in the chat, we will then read your chat message until we can figure out how to fix it. So I apologize. I realize that this is frustrating and we're going to do our best, but this is what happens when you're doing it live. Okay. Let's continue on. Okay, let's wrap up what we were just talking about. So so far I have 3 nominations for summer governance. Well, right? No, 4 nominations, I believe. Do I have any extra additional nominations? Yeah, go ahead.
Duncan McLean, Physics and Astronomy. The SOGAPS Committee, of which I am chair, would like to nominate Senator Noor Singh.
All right. Any other hands?
Hi, Katie. Nick Melosi,
I don't know if you heard from
HPM.
Travel Awards, but Nick Melosi nominated both himself and Alice Woolard through the Zoom chat.
Okay. Okay, so that means we now have 6 nominees in total for.
Hi, Katie. Can you hear me?
So, okay, so we now have 6 nominees. Are there any
I don't
additional
think-
nominations specifically for the 5 senators that will serve on summer governance? Nope. Okay. I
Katie,
would
can
also like
you-
to ask if there, we're gonna have to do a vote on this because there's more nominees than spots. I would additionally like to ask if there are any nominees for President Pro Tempore of summer governance. In chat, if you want to say something, you've got to raise your hand. 'cause I
Nick
can't.
Melosi nominated himself for pro tempore.
Okay, Nick, I see your hand is now raised. Okay, so you want to rescind your nomination for, I assume, for the regular committee member and
Yeah.
nominate yourself for President Pro Tempore? Okay.
Yeah, Katie, can you hear me in there?
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for President Pro Tempore? Kendall Winter, I see your hand is raised.
Kendall says, I don't know if we can in good faith conduct a debate on tonight's legislation under these conditions.
I agree, and I think we're going to try to figure it out in a minute, but let's finish this piece of business and then we are going to have our speakers speaking, and while they're speaking, I'm going to do a little more fiddling and see if I can find an answer. And then if not, we might have to do something else. But thank you for that comment. Okay. Do I hear a motion? Is there any discussion about any of the nominations? I don't think that there should be. Do I hear a motion to approve those senators that nominated for summer governance? Yes.
So moved.
I see a motion. Is there a second?
Quick point of order. I believe we have 6 senators nominated.
We should. We should have 5 nominated for seats on summer governance and 1 nominated for the President Pro Tempore.
We have 6 for summer governance and 1 for President Pro Tem.
One of the people that nominated themselves for summer governance rescinded that and nominated himself for President Pro Tempore, I believe, right?
Before that, we had 7. Now we have 6.
Oh,
and
I
1.
miscounted.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you read those back to me then? Because that is my mistake.
From appropriations, we have Samantha Beck. From O&A, we have William Boyer. From R&J, we have Fernando Quijano. From Travel Awards, we have Alice Woolard. From Finance, from SOGAPS, Duncan, I actually missed your nomination, but we had a nomination from Senator McLean.
Sorry, the nomination was for Senator Noor Singh.
All right. Okay, so that's my apologies. I miscounted. So we will need to go into discussion. Okay, so we're going to do this the same way that we do any nominations. We're going to go into, I'm going to give each nominee 1 minute of an opportunity to discuss why they want to be on summer governance. We will start with, can you, Luke, you're going to have to help me. I don't have the names in front of me.
Sure, we can start with Samantha Beck from appropriations.
If you want to take 1 minute or less, preferably.
Okay, hi, I'm Samantha Beck. I'm a first-year PhD student in the Biomedical and Biological Sciences program. I've been a part of appropriations this year as the secretary. I've tried to keep that pretty organized. And with our meeting minutes and what we hope to accomplish as well. Yeah, I don't really got much to say, but I'll be around all summer and be happy to continue on.
Awesome, thank you. Who's the next person?
It's William Boyer, nomination from ONA.
All right, go ahead.
Point of order.
Yes.
The code dictates in this situation, if we have a committee defined nominee, they take precedent over any floor nominated nominees. And so, yeah, it's title X.
Is that with the new updated title 10 or with the old one that's on the GPSG?
This
website?
would be before revision.
All right. Okay. I would like a motion to table this discussion until after the listening session, so we can go ahead and get that while we have people here.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we will come back to this after the listening session so we can, clearly there's more to this. This was a little more complicated than we thought it was going to be, which is fine. All right, so we are going to move backwards now here. We do have a speaker that we've invited, Anita Brown-Graham, who is from the Chancellor Search Committee, who is going to, yes, you're looking at, okay, sorry, I thought you had something to tell me. I believe they also have a presentation that I am going to share here. And I would like to invite Anita. Are you here? Oh, please come up. Yes. Hi, welcome. Please join us. If you would introduce yourself maybe to the room and talk a little bit.
All right, happy to do so. So hi, everyone. I'm Anita Brown-Graham, as you've heard. I'm a professor of public law and government at the UNC School of Government. And I am not on the search committee. I am an advisor to the committee, and essentially my role is to be the liaison between the committee and stakeholders on campus. I think I got nominated for that role because it's what I do in my day-to-day job, although I tend to do it with stakeholders and communities. And I've decided after a few weeks of this position, my day job is easier than this one. I've done 2 sessions so far. I met with the faculty council in this very room. And it was a very quiet conversation. It was Friday at 4:30, and I could tell everybody was like, can we go home now? Yesterday, on the other hand, and contrary to that experience, Christopher Everett, student body president, hosted a session with the undergraduate students, and it was amazing. Like, I literally went home saying to my husband, there was not a single person there that I wouldn't love to buy a cup of coffee or lunch and have a conversation with. And so I say that to you to say, like, you can't really hurt my feelings. Maybe you think you can, but you can't. Whatever you want me to share with the committee, my job is to serve as your ambassador back to them. One student yesterday asked me to assess what I had heard, and I tried to do that in my, these are the themes. And the student was like, yeah, you sound like a lawyer. Okay, I am a lawyer. What do you want from me? That's what I do. I want to be clear, though, that I understand what my charge is here, and it is to share what you have said. Sarah, who I see sitting here, is helping to lead the administration of the search, and she'll be taking notes, and she'll be sharing them with the search committee. And I'm kind of excited because once the search committee comes on board, they'll be doing these, and I will be able to sit with Sarah and just listen. How about that? So let's just talk. Do you want me to click? What do you want me to do? If you're happy to do it, I'm happy to do it. All right, Lauren, you're up here. Do you want to say something or not?
Thank you. Hi, all. Most of you know me. I'm Lauren Hawkinson. I'm the current president of the Graduate Professional Student Government. Through, I don't know, the next hour, and then Katie Heath is taking over. But I had the pleasure of talking with Anita a couple weeks ago, hearing from her. She reached out to me in order to set up times and modes of communication that worked best for graduate students. So I am optimistic that our voices are going to be heard. I'm really happy to see so many graduate students here today. And I just encourage you to be honest and please share with Anita your concerns about the university and what we as graduates and professional students are looking for in our next chancellor. We are going to start out down here in this room. We only have 30 minutes because we have a packed schedule. I know there are individuals here that are not sitting senators, but we're going to start as best we can, prioritizing the senators' questions since they need to stay here and finish our legislative session. Anyone else who has questions, you can please, if you can please hold those until we move upstairs or until all of the senators' questions have been answered. Sure.
So we actually just got confirmation that we are going to be allowed to move upstairs to the working room. We're going to keep doing this in here for until we need to move, basically, for all of the in-person questions, and then we're going to move up. We're going to take a recess, move upstairs so that we can have a working Zoom so we can hear everyone on Zoom. So I just wanted everyone to know that, in fact, those that are here, when we're done with this listening session in person, you'll actually are going to stay here because we're swapping rooms, if that's okay. Okay, I just wanted everyone to know in case you're texting someone.
Thank you, Katie. So listening session will stay here. Senators will move upstairs.
Thank you. And thank you for agreeing to host this. I appreciate it. So I'm going to move pretty quickly through a couple of slides because I want to hear from you mostly. And I don't know who the sitting senators are. I don't even know who the sitting senators in Washington, D.C. are. So if you'll help call on people, that would be very helpful to me. Okay, wonderful. All right, next slide, please. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds on the search process overview. I want you to know from this moment on, this is the early stakeholder input. So don't think this is the one and done for you to have a chance to shape this process. It is not. As I mentioned, we are trying to get the search committee on board pretty quickly. We've interviewed one search firm today. Hopefully we'll get it done by next week. And the search firm will give us some ideas of creative ways, best practices to do stakeholder engagement. But it didn't feel right to wait until that came to be for us to start having conversations because they're going to hit the ground running. They're going to develop a leadership profile. They should not do that without your voices shaping that process. So we'll talk about that. I'll talk about some questions that we have for the search committee, questions for you, and then you all can just go for it. For those of you, I see a couple of friends who were in the session yesterday. I'm happy that you just couldn't get enough of me and decided to come back today, or maybe not because you regrouped and decided you had a better strategy for getting me today. All good. But let's try to answer some of the questions that I have for you because Sarah's got to share those with the search committee. And then as we did yesterday, I'm all game for anything you have for me, and I will stay with you all for as long as I need to. I have nothing on my calendar. Well, actually, that's not true, but I have little on my calendar tonight that can't be done after midnight. So if you all want to talk all night, I'm here and I want to hear what you have to say. Okay, is that a deal? That's good? All right. Okay, next slide, please. So just to give you some sense of, next slide, the search process overview and when things will happen. This is the advisory committee. As many of you may know, the policy from the system office has changed. I actually sat on the search committee that resulted in Chancellor Guskowitz being selected as the Chancellor of UNC. At that time, we had a much larger search committee. Now the university system office has decided to try to truncate that. And most of the people who are on this advisory committee are on the committee by virtue of the position they hold. They're the student body president, their board of trustees chair, their employee forum president, their faculty senate chair. So just keep that in mind as you think about who's on the search committee and who's not. Next slide, please. It's coming, it's coming. All right, so here's our proposed timeline. Let me start at the bottom because this is helpful. The idea is that we will have a new chancellor named by November or December of this year. How are we going to get there? Well, last week, the committee had its first meeting, and we're just basically hitting the ground running from there. As I've said, my role is to make sure that the process legitimately hears the voices of stakeholders, and that's why we're doing some of these before the committee is named. The next, before the search firm is named, rather. The next time that the committee will meet will be on April 16th. At that point, we expect to have a search firm named, and that's a really important part of this process. From there, the first thing the search firm is going to do is start working on the leadership profile. What do we want to see in the next chancellor for this amazing university? Many of you may know, may not know, but I am an alum of the university. I graduated from this law school. I literally thought when I got here, I died and gone to heaven. So I believe that Carolina blue is the color of heaven. And I want us to have the best chancellor we can have going forward. So we're on the same team here. Once the profile is done and approved by the committee, then the role of the search firm is actually to go out and try to entice the best candidates in the country, in the world, to apply to be chancellor. Personally, I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to be the chancellor of this fine institution. And so I expect we will have a very robust group of people as applicants. We'll work through that, get to a set of finalists. And then if you look at the way the process is today, next slide, please. Thank you. The Search Advisory Committee is advisory. It's going to give at least 3 names to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is going to give at least 3 names, which may or may not be the exact same 3 names, to the president. The president of the university system, Peter Hans, will recommend to the Board of Governors of the university system that one of those people be selected as chancellor. That's the process we have. Next slide, please. We don't need to do that. We don't even need to do that one. We don't need to do that one. We don't need to do that. All right, this is what we need to do. Just in case you are thinking this is the only opportunity at this moment, the survey around the chancellor selection process and what people want to see went live yesterday. I am super psyched about how many people have already answered the survey. Now I'm super psyched because I actually haven't looked at the answers yet. But the fact is, this is a very engaged community, and that's a great thing. We've got 3 questions that have close-ended options, but also allow you to include some other option that you think, and those are like, what are the strengths? What are the opportunities for improvement? What are the leadership characteristics? And then we have another 3 questions where we're just leaving it completely open. What leadership style do you want to see? What are the priorities for the next 2 to 5 years? And what are the other considerations that the committee should prioritize? Next slide, please. This is the second formal listening session. As I said, I met with the faculty council and talked to them about the process, but they did not actually have a listening session. So I'm going back to meet with them. Yesterday, we launched with undergraduate students. Today, with graduate and professional students. We'll do the employee forum tomorrow. And then by April 20th, I presume the firm will be on board and they'll do the sessions with the alumni and the faculty executive committee and any other session that any other group wants to have. I actually don't think we can listen hard enough in this process. We got to take every opportunity to talk to every group who wants to hear from us. So let's start on the listening. Next slide, please. This is the website. If you haven't seen it, all this information is on the website. Check it out, share it with people, take the survey on the website, and keep checking back on the website for additional listening session opportunities. Next slide, please. Keep going. All right. So I want to start on the positive if I can, because I think that's really important. Like I cannot say enough how important this campus has been to me, both as a student and as a professional. It has great strengths. And I don't imagine that any of you would be sitting in the seats that you're sitting in. You wouldn't have come here if you didn't recognize those strengths. So what is it that you want the next chancellor to preserve and build on in terms of the strengths of this university? And I'm going to get you to call on people. Are you watching Zoom? Thank you. I try not to teach any of my classes in hybrid because I always forget about the people who are on Zoom. It's bad. Yes.
Hey, Winston Ardwan, political science. I think one of the reasons why I know I chose to come here, I think a lot of other PhD students as well, or masters or other graduate students, is that we came because we trusted the faculty and the people who convinced us to come here. And one of the things that has been brought up a lot in recent years has been several concerns about shared governance and faculty governance of UNC and concerns about that slipping. And so I think a chancellor who will respect our faculty, who will promote our faculty and will actually listen to our faculty, because they're the people who brought us here and they're the people who've been here in many cases the longest.
That's great. And can somebody check to make sure the folks on Zoom can hear everyone? Okay, otherwise I'll repeat because I think that's just such an important point, right? The faculty as strength. I mean, obviously, I think that's an important point. The faculty as strength in the university. What else? Yes.
Banking, public administration. I'll echo what the senator from political science said about faculty, but I think another piece of that is sort of the reputation, at least in North Carolina. So our specific degree, the MPA, is really well known in North Carolina, with specifically the School of Government. And so,
I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, no,
I'm not
no preference
or anything, but okay.
Yeah, but I think that's what drew a lot of folks I know here is the reputation of the university, and they know that when they come out of whatever program they're in, whether it be undergrad or graduate, they know that people are going to be looking at their resumes and applications to jobs, and they're going to see, oh, this person went to Carolina, they went to one of the leading public universities in America. And so I think, at least for myself and some of the folks I've spoken with at the School of Government, students, we agree that we're looking for a chancellor that will, again, support faculty, but also not continue. We've seen some issues with politics coming up with regard to the university. I think sort of keeping away from that and just sticking to the meat and bones of what this is. It's about education and just a chancellor that's going to support that rather than focusing on politics.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. Yes, sir.
Joshua Bakita, computer science. Something that I think we do very well is working with the state. I think we are still among the top 3 states in terms of spending on our public universities, and something where we can have a good working relationship with the state to ensure that education continues to be invested in at UNC and at an affordable level. It's one of the most affordable universities in the country.
Yeah. So both sort of the level of investment, but also the affordability of the experience. Yeah, thank you. Other thoughts? Okay, so I've heard faculty, I've heard reputation, I've heard affordability, I've heard public investment. Anything else that you all think, if we get a chancellor and this chancellor doesn't recognize this strength, then what were you advising this committee on, Anita? Yes.
Rachel Maselli, first year undergrad. I would just add community engagement, especially across the graduate schools with the School of Public Health for sure, as well as the School of Government.
Yeah. Thank you. And in some ways, that's the flip side of the relationship with the state. They invest in us, we invest back into the state, and people expect that from us. Thank you. Yes, sir.
As a leader of a cultural organization on campus, there's a lot of resources for us, and I'm worried about those being gone and other DEI initiatives being stripped away.
Yeah, yeah. We've come a long way since the late 1980s when I was a student here. I hear you. Anything else? All right. So we're not perfect. We're close, but we're not perfect. What do you want the new chancellor to work on?
Again, Winston Ardoin, political science, graduate student stipends.
Say that again.
Graduate student stipends.
Graduate student stipends.
Just to add some background to that, we just had our recruitment weekend for a PhD program, and of like reputable political science programs in the country, we by far have the lowest stipend. It makes it very, very hard for us to recruit.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sir.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay, so as grad student workers, the university runs on our labor, but we are paid far below a living wage, and our stipends are much lower than those at peer institutions, as my friend in political science just said. In fact, it's half, our stipends are half as much as some of our other peer institutions.
Did you say half?
Half, that is correct. And so housing costs in Chapel Hill have skyrocketed, and we can no longer afford to live here or near campus. And so I'm really interested in making sure that the new chancellor addresses these pressing issues, because we need a living wage now if we are going to afford to be able to stay here and work here and teach here.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, could you state your unit?
I don't know what that means.
That would be your department. Our department is
sociology.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, William Boyer for the School of Information and Library Science. I have one of the challenges I see also talking about housing is there used to be more housing options for graduate students on campus, and slowly that's been dwindling. There's also been slight rumors of Beatty Hill closing as well with Chancellor Guskowitz's State of the Union speech. And so looking forward to that. If grad students are slowly being pushed off campus, even though we are a third of the students here, we don't feel all that valued if we're not really welcome to live here. So.
Got it. Thank you. Yes. I'm sorry. Oh, no, you're in charge. I forgot. Sorry. Yes.
Hi, Elizabeth Seagroves, also political science. Just to kind of echo, it's not just about us being able to live here. We're also not able to get adequate healthcare or dental care here. We're not able to live in areas that are safe or within reasonable distance from where we work, from where we, you know, a lot of us are older, we have families, we have responsibilities. We don't have a community that supports that. And so I would love to see more integration for people who have lives and needs outside of just coming to campus to focus on one thing.
Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question? Because this is just not an area I know a lot about. So I've heard that graduate stipends could be half of what's available in other places. I work in economic development, so I understand that housing costs are as high in this region as they are in most other places in the country. Do you all have a feel for whether the university does more to increase stipends to support the private market, or more to increase the supply of housing itself? Is there any, do you all have any thoughts about that? I know there's some universities for whom workforce housing is a high priority, and it's for graduate and professional students, and it's for employees who don't make a lot. I'm just curious whether anybody here has a strong feeling about which way this university should go. Yes.
So if anyone else has a better idea.
I see one person after you, but since I'm looking at you, you go ahead and start there. Is that okay? Can I do that? All right, yeah.
Please, anyone correct me, but the sense that I'm getting is that there's definitely been an increase in housing, but it's much more high-priced private housing that's focused on not people who work here, and certainly not graduate students.
So you're competing
below, it's above our means.
Okay, yes.
Okay, here we go, I got it. Okay, so as a second generation UNC student who lived in student family housing with my own mother as a child, there were actually less housing options available to me as a family now. And so I think there are actually less options for students with families than there actually were about 20 years ago.
Thank you for sharing that. And that was like a total Anita question, because that's my work. I just got excited. Yes.
Yeah, we have a question from Fernando Quijano. Fernando, can you go ahead and type your question in the chat, please? Okay, Fernando says, Fernando Quijano, Business Administration PhD. In the faculty meeting of November 2022, a plan was approved to allow for a yearly increase to our stipends. However, we are not aware of much being done to achieve this. Workers of the state of North Carolina already have a yearly increase. We would want our next chancellor to tackle these issues on behalf of graduate and professional students.
Yeah, so Sarah, you got that. One of the things I would say is workers in the state of North Carolina are not entitled to a yearly increase, as you know, but that doesn't mean that you all shouldn't have a yearly increase. So thank you for that point. Yeah. Okay. So you pick them.
Samantha Beck from BBSP. So similar to the housing, I know also the student healthcare was mentioned. With the UNC moving to the UNC healthcare, I think it's important that we maintain or even increase the amount that graduate students and students in general get, and don't see that as a way to cut costs, not only going through the private funding healthcare, but also like cutting healthcare. We need to increase it.
So let me pause here. Again, I'm happy to stay and talk to anybody for as long as you want to talk to. But I think it's important for you all to feel like you've had a chance to raise some issues that are on your agenda, not just my agenda. So what do you want me to bring back to the Search Advisory Committee that has not come up before?
My name's Luke Connors. I'm the Vice President of Communications of GPSG. I would like to emphasize that I would like a chancellor who seeks to avoid national controversy, and I would like a chancellor who seeks not to be influenced by political whims of the state of North Carolina. I think we've seen a couple of chancellors fall to these whims in my time at UNC. We've had almost annual, not so flattering headlines on the front page of the New York Times.
Did you say annual, like not like monthly, but just annual?
Annual,
Okay.
yeah, almost annual. A little more than annual. I would like to avoid this in the future. I would like to continue to be proud of my university, and I'd like my university to stand tall as an independent leading voice in education. It's not falling pressure to cultural whims of the day.
Thank you. What else do you want me to say? Lauren, can we take two more?
Hey, Ben King, Public Administration. One of the concerns, just something I want to say before you leave, I've heard from multiple constituents and folks across campus, is that it seems like the search committee or members of the search committee already have their mind made up concerning Lee Roberts. Even the survey that was sent out today, someone pointed out to me, I've got it pulled up, that some of the points seem to be like almost pointed for Lee Roberts. So
Oh, say more about that, because I did that survey and now you're hurting my feelings.
I thought you said your
What?
feelings couldn't be hurt. I'm just messing with you. So like strong financial and operational acumen at a large institution. Lee Roberts was the director of the state budget. Let's see, government relations and political savvy, Board of Governors relationships. Those are just some of them. Now I understand that's something important for our next chancellor to have, but it just seemed like maybe that was pointed towards. And I know you'll probably hear more in the listening session after you go upstairs, but I've just heard from a lot of people that it seems like Lee Roberts is like the pick. And that might not be the case. But.
So I certainly heard a lot about that yesterday. No question about it. I will just say, so that you all can be truth tellers. First, I started with surveys that had been used at other universities, and so most of it I just borrowed from other places. But then I had conversations with people like Lauren and Christopher and the faculty and the Board of Trustees and added things that people suggested that I add. But I can tell you with 100% veracity, I did not draft that survey to make it more likely that one person would be the next chancellor than the other. Just so. You can say anything you want about me when you get back to the School of Government tomorrow, but that's not one of the things you're allowed to say. I'm sorry. I'm always messing up people's schedule. I just like to talk. Yes. Ellen, I can't see you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ellen Reisenberg, bioinformatics. So in our last session, this governing body overwhelmingly passed a resolution to support a ceasefire in Gaza and divest from Israel. And I think a lot of the people in this room knew that it was symbolic, and the VOG and the interim chancellor were not going to listen to us. And as expected, we have not received a response. So I just want to know how the search committee is going to make sure that we have a chancellor that actually listens to the students and respects the students and responds to the students.
Can I paraphrase what you just said? Because I can't answer how the search committee is going to do that. But what I can say to the search committee is that you're looking for a chancellor who will be responsive to students, even if the response is no can do or no can do right now or whatever. you don't want to take action and not get a response. Is that fair? Yeah. Okay, I got you. I'm here. I'm here for you. Yes. Wait, I'm not sure I'm allowed to call on people. Oh, okay. Okay. Don't leave. I want to hear.
Yeah, we had two hands raised, both Hashem Amira and Alice Azcona. I guess one of you could type your question in chat. I don't see questions from either of y'all quite yet. Okay, I see Ellis's question first, so I'm gonna go with that. Sorry, Hashem. Ellis Azcona from Religious Studies says, number one, grad student safety concerns are not taken seriously, especially when their safety is threatened by or they're being repeatedly harassed by tenured professors. I know tenure complicates things, but surely something could be done to ensure grad student safety, such as moving their classes to another building or asking the perpetrator to teach from Zoom. Number two, why was the listening session time changed with no notice? Why did the committee not listen to GPSG's concerns or work with GPSG to find a better solution? How can we believe the committee will listen to us given this?
Question again, please.
So the second part of that question was, why was the listening session time changed with no notice? Why did the committee not listen to GPSG's concerns or work with GPSG to find a better solution? How can we believe the committee will listen to us given this?
So I hear you on the safety concerns and we've got that listed. I'm not sure I understand the question about time change because we did work with Lauren to schedule this. What we wanted to do was do it at a time when you all would be gathered, so it wouldn't be one more thing that you had to add to your calendar. But if there was some schedule change, I don't know anything about that.
Yep, Alice, you can report your grievances to me on that one. I was just trying to find a time that most of the student leadership would be available, and other graduate students could come in if they wanted to. And knowing that the Senate session, we would only have about 30 minutes to have the listening session. There are going to be, I do want to say, there are going to be additional listening sessions for graduate students. This is not going to be the only one. And I know that Katie and Anita will work on that moving forward. Katie with the rest of the Chancellor Search Advisory Committee. So please don't feel like this is the only time that you are going to have to express your thoughts to the Chancellor Search Committee. And I would highly recommend that you attend as many of the other listening sessions as you can.
And if I might just say something about skepticism here, like I get it, I totally get it. And the timing of this search is not optimum. It just isn't. But given when our last chancellor left and given what it takes to get a search committee put together and a search firm in place, we had really three options. We could have waited until the fall to do listening sessions, and that felt not right to me. And it just felt not right to me. We could have done listening sessions starting in the summer when many people are gone, and that felt not right to me. And so if these listening sessions feel hurried, they are. But it was important for me, because I just got one job to do here, which is make sure the community on this campus has a voice. It was important to me that the search firm not be in place without some sense of what different constituencies on this campus think. So I don't want to pretend like it's perfect, it's not. But the other two options felt less perfect to me.
For just a moment, and then I'll give it back. Yeah, you can have it. All right, so we are going to allow those of you who are here for the listening session to continue on with the listening session, but the Senate meeting, I would like to hear a motion to hold a, I'm forgetting what's the word.
I move to hold a 5-minute recess.
We probably need 10 minutes.
At recess.
A 10-minute recess. Do I hear a second? Okay. We will reconvene the meeting at 6:45. Okay. It is now 6:45. That is now the end of our recess. We're back. Thank you everyone so much for your flexibility. I realized that was a pain. Okay. We are going to move back into selection of summer governance. Did I get Luke back? Luke's here. Everyone kind of came and sat back where they were. That's nice. Okay. Okay, so the last thing we had done is we had received 6 nominations for summer governance, and we only have 5 seats. So we had heard, I'm wondering if the senator who already spoke, do you want to re-speak? Because I'm fine with that. Yeah, it's probably good just so everyone remembers. Okay, so we're going to go back through and allow every senator who was nominated for summer governance to have 1 minute to speak on why you want to be in summer governance and why you think you would do a good job. So we'll start again with Senator Beck.
Hi, Samantha Beck. I'm a first year graduate PhD student in the Biological and Biomedical Sciences program. I've been on Appropriations Committee this year as the secretary, and it's been a great time. I've learned a lot. I loved being involved in GPSG, being involved in just leadership opportunities as well. As first year students, we don't really know much coming to UNC. Most of us have come from different institutions. I'm sure all of you have, but it's just been great to get an inside look on what is UNC to make the next 4+ years here great. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, that was weird, but I fixed it. Okay, next I think is Senator Boyer.
Hi, I'm William Boyers, School of Information and Library Science. I am currently on the Oversight and Accountability team. And I am not the chair of that department, or committee, but I want to volunteer my time and all my efforts over the summer, as I will be in Chapel Hill for all of my summer, and we'll be doing summer classes. So I will also wanted to dedicate my time to something I enjoy, which is GPSG and something of value. And so I have all my time open and available for GPSG over the summer, and I think I will do the best job I can.
Thank you so much. Okay, Luke, you're gonna have to help me out with, or someone else volunteer to go next.
So the next person who was nominated was Fernando Quijano.
Okay, Fernando, are you still there? Do you mind?
I am still here.
Okay, go ahead.
I can hear me.
So
Yay.
good.
So hello everyone. My name is Fernando Quijano. I'm a 3rd-year PhD student in the Organizational Behavior Department at the Business School. I just recently joined the RNJ committee, but I have been working on various Senate initiatives since last year. I want to nominate myself for summer governance for 2 main reasons. The first one, which is more on the practical side, is to work over the summer in the implementation and growth of UNC Connect, which aims to leverage a premium Slack server offered to all UNC graduate students to connect with other grad students and common interests. This year, we kind of have been running it as a beta with senators and some other people who've joined. And we have received great feedback about how much easier it has been to communicate with other, within the committees and with other Senate members thanks to it. Furthermore, with the more interest of people joining for more personal, making connections on more personal and shared interests, over the last month and a half, we've have a little group going out every other week to different burger places, trying to determine which is the best burger in the triangle. For me, right now, Bull City Burger is currently
That
leading
is
the
a
pack.
minute, Fernando. So
Oh, okay.
sorry.
That's
Thank
right.
you so much. Okay, next is,
Next up is Alice Woolard.
all right, Alice, if you want to go ahead next.
Great, thanks everyone. Hi, I'm Alice Wooler. I'm a 4th-year student in bioinformatics and computational biology. I was chair of summer governance last year. I've been on the travel awards committee for 2 years. I work with Nick Molokai closely, and I'm excited to work this summer, continuing some of the work we did last summer on smoothing out some things for travel awards for students, also move along some things with appropriations and different events planning and ways we can move these allocations into the hands of students to get things going for all of our graduate professional students. And And I work with other senators now. I work with Katie, for example, on the dance committee, and Fernando, we're working on those things. So I'm happy to continue working with everybody I do now to keep moving things along and getting the money where it needs to go for students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alice.
Next up would be Isaac Weiss, but he actually just got in touch with me and said he would rescind his own nomination.
Okay. Okay, well, if he's going to rescind his nomination, then we don't need to vote because now we have 5 people. So thank you everyone for your speeches. That was really enlightening. We can move on. Okay, so I will, now that we have the appropriate number of nominees for each position and for President Pro Temp, do I now have a motion to confirm each of those
So
senators
moved.
to? Perfect. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any objections? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, guys. That went really long, but that's okay. Okay, so now we're going to move into the fun part, which is legislation. We have a few bills tonight. The way I would like to do the first 34 through 54-034 to 54-048. All of these are acts to approve both the GPSG executive branch. I also there's a couple in there for approving the couple of GPSG judicial members. What I would like to do, if that is okay with the group, is move into a discussion for all of the bills simultaneously. So we are not here all night long, if that is all right. If you give me one moment to open up Canvas, and I can pull the bills. But I'd like to, while I do that for a moment, can I go ahead and start off with wondering if there's anyone has any questions for any of the nominees raring to go. I also can list the nominees if that's helpful. Go ahead. Can you use yeah.
I have a comment if that is okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am one of the members on the Oversight and Accountability, as you have just heard. Also William from the School of Information and Library Science. We interviewed all these appointments, and we have nothing but good things to say. We've looked at all their resumes, all their CVs, and they are not only qualified, but overqualified for these positions. And they have so many good and amazing plans for the next upcoming year. So I recommend that we appoint them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Go ahead.
Yeah, Joshua Bakita, Computer Science. So I was curious if you could maybe talk a little bit about some of the key nominees in here. For example, the Senior Vice President.
Happy to.
Often these are introduced. I don't know if we have to introduce them all formally in their qualifications, but it would
Yeah,
be nice.
do you want me to do the vice presidents maybe?
Yeah, if you could start with that, that'd be very helpful.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. So for all of you that don't know, I am also the president-elect, so I'm in a funny position where I'm both presiding, but also I am the one who has nominated all of these people. So I can very quickly try to go through each of the executive board very quickly and talk about a couple of the candidates. I'll start off with my candidate, my nominee, I should say, for Senior Vice President, Xavier Daniels, who's here joining us. Xavier comes from us from the Keenan Flagler in the MBA program. And he has, through our series of conversations, shown he has quite a bit of interest and experience in student government. Although he is not currently in GPSG, he has a significant amount of experience in other student government experiences at other universities. He also is working to get his certification in Robert's Rules. I feel very confident in his ability to, take on this role. And I'm very excited to see him join us. I'll do all of them. And then if y'all want to maybe ask questions, we can do it after I introduce everyone. Next, we have my Vice President of Advocacy and Governmental Affairs, is Elaine Reich, who was here earlier. Elaine served as our director of advocacy this year for GPSG. She did a wonderful job in the position, spearheaded and worked in collaboration on a lot of the projects that the executive branch ended up working on this year. Elaine was a part of, including the cool social event we're doing tomorrow night. And I think that based off of her experience with advocacy, I think she's going to do a great job both with managing projects, but also as in a leadership role, helping to mentor and support the cabinet positions as well. Next, we have Ivy Andrew, who's going to be the vice president, hopefully, the vice president of diversity and inclusion, who is in the back somewhere. I think that after talking with Ivy, she had a large amount of experience doing this diversity and inclusion type advocacy work in undergrad, where she attended here at UNC. She had work that she was doing around the time that Silent Sam was happening, and a lot of the, I wasn't here, I can't give all the details, but around the time that that was happening, I know that she was significantly involved in some advocacy work there. I also know that she has a lot of really great ideas for new programs and projects that we can introduce that I think, because I don't think GPSG is currently doing enough in this area. And I think she's going to do a great job. Next, Joanna is my nominee for Vice President of Communications. I think Joanna has expressed to me a lot of great experience that she's had in other types of roles related to not necessarily student government, but significant number of leadership roles in her past that she has experience working in a number of roles in that in her time and her experience. And I think after talking to her, I think she has a lot of really good ideas for potentially new methods or new ways that we can use our communication better. And I think she's going to do a great job with this position. Is that all of them? I think that's all the VPs. Great. Any questions after I just said all that?
I would like to move the question in debate, if that's all right on these.
Sure. Do I hear a second? Any objections?
Whatever, I object. This will probably get voted down, but I do have
Okay.
some more questions.
Okay, I do hear an objection. We'll go to, we'll do a hand vote on this then. All in favor of, just to clarify, all of those on Zoom, you're going to vote by raising your hand on Zoom. So I will say, like, all those in favor, you will click the raise hand button on Zoom. I will count all of those together, and we'll do it that way. So all in favor of moving the question and ending discussion, please raise your hand. I'm going to, okay. All right. Now please put your hands down. Hands down on Zoom, all the way down. There's still one person. Senator Lowe, can you put your hand down? Please. I don't know that I can do it for you. Thank you. Okay, all opposed, please raise your hand. All right, the ayes have it. Okay, so, and with that, we will end discussion on this cluster of bills. Okay. Let me click past all of these. Y'all got off pretty easy. Y'all over there, I have to say. Okay. We're going to move on now to 54, is that right? 54-049, which is a resolution to establish a graduate and professional student bill of rights. So this bill had a lot of authors because it was quite a significant bill and there were quite a significant number of people that worked on it. I'm wondering, Duncan, do you want to start and then just send it immediately back to me? Because I don't really feel comfortable just like immediately explaining it. I think a senator needs to technically introduce it.
Okay, Duncan McLean, Physics and Astronomy, that sounds good to me. So what this particular piece of legislation calls for is, this calls for us to have a resolution brought to the student body, which if approved, would establish a graduate and professional student bill of rights. Now, the Bill of Rights itself is given in an appendix to this document. The main bulk of the operative clauses of the legislation are just calling for the referendum and what the question would be. But the Bill of Rights itself has several subsections, which we have workshopped over, gotten positive feedback on from the Graduate Student Experience Initiative members and with whom the incumbent president has been working. These cover things like physical wellness, mental wellness, healthcare access, the establishment of clear and readable contracts for graduate and professional student workers, and working conditions that are fair and provide some kind of reporting and enforcement apparatus for when violations are encountered. We think this is a huge step forward for employment on campus. We think that the response we've gotten from the administration so far makes us think that these things will not only be positively received, but that we will be able to use them as basically mechanisms for de jure enforcement in the future. And so I highly recommend you vote for it. Is it proper for me to make a motion while I'm introducing it?
If you want a motion for an amendment, and you are also the author, I think technically you can motion and then deem that motion friendly, and then we will just make the change.
Okay.
But I do believe we need a second for the motion in order.
Understandable. Okay. Well, that's basically the introduction. This is the total of a lot of work that's been done with the executive branch and with members of the community as well as the SOGAPS committee. I like it a lot, as you might expect.
Great. Okay, we will move into discussion on this. Senator Bakita.
Thank you, Joshua Bakita, Computer Science. At the top of page 7, it says ratification of amendments must occur by the faculty council and the provost or something. Could you clarify what the intended language is there?
There may have been a motion in the works to strike that.
Ooh, that was a note that accidentally didn't get deleted. I'm happy you caught that. So if you want to make it, the intention was that wasn't supposed to be there, and I just forgot to delete it.
Which part is not intended to be there by the bill
entire
authors?
sentence, ratification of amendments must occur by faculty council and provost or something. That was a note to myself that I did not delete. So if you want to make a motion to remove it, I would support that.
So moved.
You'd have to make the motion, not myself. So, or I guess so moved. If someone wants to call for a motion to delete the sentence that Katie forgot to take out of the document.
It's fine.
I call for a motion to delete the sentence that Katie forgot to remove from the document.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Okay, any objections? Okay, page 7, the sentence starting with ratification. We will remove that. So good catch. We had a quick turnaround on this, guys. I'm going to be honest. So. Go ahead.
Megan from Romance Studies. I just have a quick question about enforceability. I think this is a great idea, but my primary concern is even if the faculty council, recognizes this, who's to say that if, you come up and your advisor for maybe is not pertaining to one of these rights? What is the enforceability level? Like, I wouldn't say punishment, but, what is the retributive action for that violation.
Second, do you want to ping to, since I'm calling you the author, do you want to ping to one of the other authors to answer it?
That's perfectly fine by me.
Okay. Lauren, oh, okay. You got it. Perfect.
All right, can everybody hear me? Great question.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Lauren Hawkinson, GPSG president. Thank you for asking that question because that's been one of my primary concerns as well. I believe that through the work of the Graduate Student Experience Initiative, we are going to be able to add, for lack of a better term, some more teeth to our Bill of Rights. So essentially what we're laying out in the Bill of Rights will then also be laid out in the Graduate Student Experience Initiative, which involves individuals from literally every corner of campus. There are over 100 individuals who are part of the Graduate Student Experience Initiative, including graduate students, and then as well as other pretty high-level administrators. And so the goal between the Graduate Student Experience Initiative and writing this Bill of Rights is to kind of have a sandwich effect, that these new expectations are going to be coming down from administration, and also they're going to be coming up from the students. So to kind of have that two-pronged approach. And while, yes, graduate students often don't feel like we have any power, and there's not a good way for this kind of thing to be enforced. And I'm extremely optimistic that through the work of Dean Mayor Davis and the Graduate Student Experience Initiative and the other individuals from the Provost's office who are involved in that are going to help us ensure that our rights are being acknowledged and supported.
Senator Boyer.
William Boyer for School of Information and Library Science. Question for the bottom of page 6, where it details the passage threshold for a referendum shall be a simple majority, provided 2.5%. Why is 2.5% highlighted? And yes.
That's a great question. So I'll say, so we recently passed a new constitution, and that is what the Constitution says. The Constitution inevitably will override this document anyway, but I just, for clarity purposes, I just copied what the current referendum requirements are from there. Other questions? Senator Brikita.
This is looking at this Bill of Rights. There's some things in here that are otherwise required by law. For example, accessible access to new facilities. I'm curious, as the document was formed, what was the guiding principle about what was worth repeating and what was not worth repeating, and sort of how are we choosing what that distinction?
Elaine, do you want to answer? Elaine is also one of the authors of the bill.
Elaine, Director of Advocacy. We really believed, and by we I mean myself and Jake Diana, in that section, really believe that we should probably start beating the dead horse continually. So the accessibility is in reference to, one, just lack of ADA accessibility across campus, and then two, the new facilities being built should have no excuse to be fully accessible. That should be a forethought, not an afterthought. So that's why we included that language. And even though it's legally required in the state, there's still a lack of enforcement because of money at the university level.
Brian, was that a hand?
Yeah. There's also other issues at times where the university could get around and say, hey, that's not our building that we manage, so therefore we're not responsible for it. But actually, by having these kind of provisions, it even says no matter what the facility is, whether it's owned or operated by the university, then they have to do it. And so it just ensures additional protection, for example, for I think like marine labs and other kind of spaces that are not directly on like central campus.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to move to amend again. There are two typos I noticed in the document, looking through it again, which, arguably I should have noticed earlier, but on page 7, bullet 2, sub bullet 2, there's a word that I think it's substantiative. It should be substantive, I believe.
Can you repeat where that is? Because
Sure. Page 7 of the document, bullet 2, sub bullet 2.
Have the right to regular and substantive feedback on their performance and degree progress. Okay. And your motion is to
Replace that word with substantive.
Okay.
And
do I hear a second? Is that deemed friendly? Presumably.
I would deem it friendly.
All right. We don't need to vote on that. Perfect.
There's a second
Okay.
amendment as well. So on page 10, bullet 1 and sub bullet 6. So the 6th white bullet.
1, 2.
Acknowledgement has a superfluous E. Should be, we should strike up slightly above where you are. We can strike that second E.
Perfect. Do I assume it's a motion to do so?
That is the motion.
Do I hear a second? Great.
Friendly.
Awesome. Kendall, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Hi, Kendall Winter, musicology. With permission, I'll keep my camera off because it's been making my Zoom lag when I turn it on. My question is about the referendum. The recent GPSG presidential election, which was in the spring, had a total turnout of 3.64%, which is not very high over that 2.5% threshold of voter turnout in order to have a valid election result. And I want to stress that this was when we had the GPSG presidential election, which we are not going to have for a referendum held concurrent with the fall general elections. So my question is to not just the authors of this bill, and I know, Duncan, that you'll, if confirmed, be part of the cabinet over the summer, but I want to know what plans you all are going to have in place to ensure that there's widespread awareness of this ballot referendum so that we don't end up with a failed election simply because turnout drops by 80 voters and then we don't have the 2.5% that we need in order to pass this.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I guess I should probably answer this. Yeah, it's a good question. So we've been having a lot of conversations recently with the Board of Elections about somewhat reevaluating some of the things that they are doing in terms of advertising some of the elections. This has kind of been an ongoing conversation for a couple of months. And so I think this is going to be something that has to happen in conjunction with the Board of Elections. It's going to be certainly advertising. I think that one thing that really helps at the beginning of the year with the fall general election turnout is making sure that new graduate professional students know about the election. And so I think there will certainly be a push specifically at orientation and also through email to new graduate professional students about this happening. I also think that we're going to have to do like a more significant, a significant ad campaign, not to vote for it or not, but that there is a vote, right? Because we're not allowed to say if you should one way or the other, but there will need to be a significant advertising campaign about the fact that an election is happening. I think through email, through orientation, I think we have a plan. The good thing is we have the summer to kind of work on this. So I think we have a plan that I'm hoping to work on where we're going to be going physically to some of the professional schools and doing some talking sessions with the professional schools. So hoping we can bring in informed students that way, stuff like that. I certainly could talk about it for a while, but that's kind of some high level stuff. But I think it's a great point.
And I didn't mean to imply that you would be pressing people to vote for this, but I assume that is the outcome that the people who authored the bill would like to see. But yeah, knowing that there's some campaign violation territory there. Yeah, sorry to imply that.
No, you're good. I didn't want to imply it myself. I read it. I read the rules, so we'll do it the right way. Thank you for that question. Are there any other questions or comments or motions? Any on Zoom? All right, hearing none, let's keep going. Thank you, everyone. I will just take a minute to note that this has been quite an undertaking this year to get this document to this point, and I really appreciate everyone considering it tonight. And I think that this is hopefully going to be one of many really great steps that we're taking, I think, for advocacy over the next year. So that's just my 2 cents. Okay, so the next bill is 54-050, a resolution to recognize the Graduate Professional Bill of Rights in the Constitution. So I can kind of clarify what this is. So this bill is separate than the previous bill, where the previous bill was recognizing it, so that all graduate professional students are going to vote on that big, huge Bill of Rights document. This referendum is going to be a separate question on the ballot, and it's asking for this language to be added to our Constitution. Because it is being added to Title III of the Constitution, which only oversees graduate and professional students, only graduate and professional students need to vote in a referendum. And what this is doing is basically adding this language to the Constitution to recognize the Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights will not itself be a part of the Constitution, but will be recognized and sort of defined in the Constitution. Happy to take any questions or comments. Any on Zoom? Senator Rakita.
A minor question on section 1, point A in the amendment. It uses the word guaranteed for rights. I don't believe this word is used in the Bill of Rights itself. Could you speak a little bit more on that with the light that I think these constitutional changes also have to be approved by the chancellor?
Yes, so this was a whole conversation that we had about that word at the last meeting about this, and we decided to come to Senate to talk about it actually, and I'm so happy you brought it up because there was some discussion about like, are we even allowed to guarantee rights or not, but also we want to use as strong of language as possible. I have a personal opinion that I won't share because I don't really, it's one way or the other. I would, if others would like to discuss what word we should use, either use guarantee or not, I would love to hear it. That's what I'll say about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Why not just use the language from the Bill of Rights itself, standards and expectations?
Sure.
I mean, I'm not making a motion yet, suggestion.
Any other thoughts or comments on that in the room? Go ahead.
Fernando Quijano. Oh, sorry.
We'll come right back to you, Fernando. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, sure. This is Luke Connors, Vice President of Communications. I was also involved in this discussion regarding the choice of wording here. I think where we were coming from was we were of the opinion that we should sort of use as strong language as we thought we might be able to get away with. This kind of refers back to your previous question, Joshua, regarding what we included and didn't include, which was already covered by law. Sort of anything that came to mind, we figured we would rather include than leave out. When we said guaranteed here, we figured it's best to say that this is a strong expectation. Guaranteed seemed to us to be the most concise way to state that, and if it was overstepping a little bit, we were okay to err in that direction. That said, I think we'd be more than happy to adopt the language that's in the Bill of Rights, especially given that we already endorsed that language there.
Fernando.
Hi, Fernando Quijano, Business Administration, PhD. I would like to support the use of the word guarantee. And I think, as kind of Luke just said, this is taking it a step higher, because, the whole idea of rights is that someone has to guarantee them, right? I mean, if we're writing a Bill of Rights, I feel like if we just say the expectations, kind of takes away semantically from who's in charge of doing it. Expectations are, there's no agency necessarily from the person, like from the body or entity around it. Guarantee puts the agency of making this happen on the university and the different bodies within it. And I think the idea of we're going to try to do this is to try to go for this guarantee. And kind of, as Luke said, if we get some pushback, then we can change it to the other language that we're using. But we should aim initially to make sure that this is guaranteed and using that word, because it puts the agency and the requirement of it in the university entity as such, rather than just a abstract expectation, which does not come necessarily with the fact that it will be done or a timeline for it, as we have experienced with many of our interactions with the government of the university.
Okay.
Duncan McLean, Physics and Astronomy. If I might chime in, I'll also, there was a big back and forth on this in our drafting meetings. I will come out and also, in this case, support the use of the word guarantee. The reason being is that I think that the circumstances of this academic year and the existence and mission of the Graduate Student Experience Initiative and its associated committees really puts us in a unique position right now. I don't think that the administration has been as receptive to concerns in this way in a very long time, and I don't think that they're necessarily going to listen to us with the same gravity in a year or so if we wait. I think that in this case, it is better to ask for forgiveness than permission, and that if it looks like they're going to respond positively to the rights enumerated in the Bill of Rights, I think we could use that language, and it would be beneficial to having it taken seriously in the administration, and also having students who might look at it, take it seriously and think this has weight, and I can use the language in here to ameliorate a situation I'm facing. So I would still support the word guarantee here.
Great. Go ahead. Yes, I'm Bakita.
Joshua Bakita, Computer Science. What does it make sense to say guaranteed or to be guaranteed? Something that kind of bugs me a little bit about this is like guaranteed. I like the word, but it almost feels kind of like we're lying. If someone reads the document, it's like we can say they should be guaranteed. We want the university to guarantee it, and they are to be guaranteed. But can we really say like guaranteed, or is there some grammar expert in the room who's going to tell me this really isn't any different?
Right. Any other hands? Luke.
Yeah, this is Luke Connors, Vice President of Communications. I'll say, Joshua, I'm really sympathetic to that point. This goes back to our question of enforcement previously. Given that we are relying on admin and the GSE initiative to give this thing some teeth, I think it probably is more, it's more accurate and more honest probably to say these rights should be guaranteed rather than we guarantee these rights. We just don't really have the influence to do so.
So I'd like to make a motion then to add to be guaranteed. So to change fourth rights guaranteed to fourth rights to be guaranteed.
Luke, you got that in the notes? Good. I know you were talking. I wanted to give you a second. All right. So we have a motion. Do I hear a second? Okay. Is that a friendly amendment?
Since I am only one drafter, I would consider it friendly, but I would hold for any objections from any other drafters.
I see all thumbs. Okay.
Okay, friendly it is.
Great. Thank you for that motion. Is there any other discussion on this bill? Cool. Let's continue on. Did I miss a hand?
Oh, yes. Not really discussion, but thank you everyone who's put in your work on this bill. Much appreciated.
Okay, we're going to move on now to 54-051, an act to codify external appointments, outline conditions for existing and future entities to be recognized as external appointments, and formally define responsibilities of involved parties, which might be the longest bill name of any bill ever written in GPSG history. I'll let the author, Vinga, introduce this bill.
Thanks, Katie. At least I hit one record before I graduated.
Also, this is supposed to be like 2 sentences. but
I
just-
know, and I realized that like after I submitted it. So
Anyway.
hope you all enjoyed reading that. Do I have a time? Oops, on introducing this?
Not unless the group sets one.
Okay, well, I'll try to go through the different sections because I feel that that's important, but we'll try to be brief so that I'm respectful of everyone's time. So, okay. Oh gosh. Yes. Hi, my name is Abigna. I serve as Chief of Staff. You all have heard from me previously when I presented external appointment charters that you all passed over the course of the year. So one of the main roles of the Chief of Staff is overseeing external appointments. And to explain what those are, it's really just seats that are held by graduate and professional students on different committees, councils, some kind of group that's partnered in some way with GPSG. And over the years, the application process and selection of these students that have always been overseen primarily by the COS have brought up a lot of challenges with tracking external appointments, inconsistencies in developing and partnering with new ones, tracking active status, and even just the ambiguity in the structure of EAs. They have once again emerged during the process that I oversaw this year. So what I hope to do with this bill is add a section to Title V of the code that formally codifies external appointments and adds a little bit more structure to the whole process, especially because the students who serve in these roles are an important extension of GPSG and should be recognized in our bylaws in some way. So that's the reason that I feel this is important. So just to take you through what is included in this bill. So the whereas section is pretty straightforward. It's everything I just said, with the addition of citing all the current sections of the code that where external appointments are referenced, even though there is no separate section of the code where external appointments are codified. So I just wanted to note that. And then there are 6 enactment clauses, I believe. So the description and the recall section, as well as the eligibility section, are pretty short. I modeled them off of language already found in the GPSG code. So I can go more in depth into creating those sections if anybody has specific questions. The sections I wanted to highlight specifically are the conditions, responsibilities, and documentation. So starting with conditions, this really just lays out the characteristics of existing and potential new external appointments who want to be recognized as this appointment or recognized as a partnership with GPSG in this specific way. So it outlines, that these groups need to be conducting work that impacts the student body, including gaps in some way, have seats available, and need our assistance in filling those seats. And then also kind of outlines stipulations for points of contact, transparency with funding, and making sure that their mission and activities are aligned with the mission and objectives of GPSG as well. So open to questions on that once I'm done. And then, so the documentation and responsibilities, this is just over an overview of what is already taking place, what students in these positions are already doing, but just formalizing it in written word. And I think that kind of covers everything I wanted to cover. The documentation section is just so that future chiefs of staff and future administrations are held to a specific standard of tracking, reporting, and communicating with Senate about external appointments, because there have been a lot of inconsistencies with that in the past. So that kind of concludes the main part of the bill. There is a 4th section that is aiming to add this to as a second section after the comptroller in Title V, and changing the name of Title V as well, just because these appointments aren't exactly a part of the executive branch, but they are overseen by officers, mainly the chief of staff within the executive branch. So felt that this would be an appropriate place to put it. So that's what I wanted to go over. I did submit this bill to RNJ, received votes in favor. And yeah, I just think that this is a good starting point for implementing future external appointment processes and making sure that they are successful and that the students who are serving in these roles are recognized. Thanks.
Are there any questions or comments on the bill? Senator Brikita.
First, thank you, Abigna, for being the best chief of staff we've probably ever had. Secondly, I noticed that how exactly the recall clause is stated here, stating that recall shall behave as exactly the same as for the executive board. This does slightly change the recall process in that the president may now dismiss any external appointee at their discretion. Is this, I mean, I actually think this is probably a positive change, but I just wanted to highlight that that is a change, and I wanted to confirm that that is an intended change.
So yes and no. I modeled the language pretty much exactly to whatever I saw in the GPSG code, whatever is like currently available for us to look at. And so essentially, however, executive board members can be recalled, such as like through the Oversight and Accountability Committee in Senate, is how I would like for external appointments to also potentially be recalled. So if that is in alignment with what you just said, let me know. If it is not, then I would invite a change to make it that.
As I read it, so it references the entirety of Section 5 of Title III, which states 3 different methods for a recall of an executive board member. One is through the Senate. This is was a written petition is given to the president and signed by 15% of the Senate membership, and then a 2/3 vote of the Senate is required to effect a recall. The second option is the president may recall an appointee for nonfeasance and shall just present the Senate a written letter of recall along with a replacement nomination, or the executive board itself may recall an appointee. Well, actually, no, that only applies. Well, there's some ambiguousness in the language there, actually.
A point of information, we're amending that a bunch. The code review actually has a large amendment to that language. It doesn't actually change the 3 methods. It clarifies the inconsistencies in the language. So if that, just so everyone knows, that is also a proposed change that is in code review. I'm not sure if it's in 1 or 2. So just a point of information.
I will also maybe follow up on that to say that I'm aware that one of the reviews to the code is that the chief of staff serves as an ex officio person on the Oversight and Accountability Committee. So I think I almost, with this discussion, would rather that the chief of staff in partnership with ONA recalls external appointments, if that would help with the language and confusion. Am I allowed to make
just a point of information? So you want it to be harder to recall external appointments than to recall like the vice president?
Not particularly. I think this is where I'm kind of like, I will ask for advice on how to go about this, because I'd ideally just, I think the chief of staff should not like recall on their own without any kind of oversight or without any kind of partnership elsewhere in the executive branch, but I'm not sure where else that should come from. So if someone has suggestions on that, I would be willing to discuss some kind of like amendment / friendly amendment to this section.
Senator Boyer. You haven't talked yet though, so you get to go first.
William Boyer from the School of Information and Library Science. Is it possible for the executive board to very quick committee or a appointment like ONA is for the Senate, but an ONA for executive just to deal with this and then dissolve it right afterwards? Because it doesn't feel like ONA, which is Senate, should deal with things that aren't.
Yeah, so I'll say that's already one of the three ways. Is one of the ways is just the president. One of the ways is Senate through the oversight. Well, it hopefully will be through the Oversight and Accountability Committee. That language is a little weird, but that's the idea. And the third one would be through the executive board voting. Senator Bakita.
So looking at the code amendment bill that Claire, if those annual review changes are enacted, I think that this bill should actually have different language in this recall section. Given that the code audit bill clarifies and improves the recall process to be clear for any appointee of the executive branch, external appointments are considered appointments of the executive branch. And so with the code as it is now and after the changes, recall processes for external appointees are technically already mandated. And so I would move to simplify this Codifying External Appointments Act to just where section 2.005 just says something on the order of external appointees may be recalled through the executive appointee recall process as outlined in Title 3, Section 5 through 5.101.
All right, that's a motion?
Correct, yes, that's a motion.
Great. Okay, great. Do I hear a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, would you deem that friendly?
I would deem that friendly. If you can just write out what you just said and send it to me somehow.
Did you get it, or do you want us to repeat it?
A repeat might be nice. What I have is executive appointments can be recalled through the executive appointee recall process as outlined in section numbers which Joshua spoke.
Yeah, you can just the as outlined in and following language can remain in the current text. It's just but prior to that can be replaced. But yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I think it should. I'm not sure if you said executive or external. External appointments should be the first word in that. Yeah, perfect. Is there any other discussion on this bill? Going once, going twice. Okay, Vigna, thank you for your work on this. I think this is going to be really great for us to have in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the most fun part of the evening, in my opinion, 54-052, the 2024 Code Audit number 1. Senator Winter, do you want to introduce this?
I sure can, thank you. Okay, so I'm a member of R&J. I should note that I am not the chair of R&J, but I wrote most of this bill. So every year R&J is tasked with conducting a code audit where we are looking for inconsistencies and typos and also opportunities to make things run a little bit smoother next year than they ran based on the year that is concluding. In the spirit of that, we decided to split the code audit, which is typically presented as a single monster bill, into 2 smaller sections. So what we're looking at here, 54052, is the one that tries to do the first part of that, which is just correcting typos, making sure that we're correcting internal consistencies and making sure that our governing documents, or that the GPSG code is consistent with our other governing documents. And we've already talked about this a little bit tonight, but we just had that student constitution referendum amendment thing happen. So we looked for places where our code was now out of step with that following the amendments, and are proposing ways to fix it. We can go through this pretty quickly. We proposed to make text red because there is blue text that appears in blue. There's red text that appears in black. We should fix that. We propose to create a list of abbreviations, which we think will be really handy for navigating things, because there are lots of abbreviations introduced in one section, one title of the code, that are never reintroduced in their full term in other titles of the code. So having an abbreviation list will help us with that navigability. Section 2 of this bill shows Section 2, Section A. This is just us changing the numbering of the student constitution, which was changed during the recent amendments. Similarly, we don't have a president of the Senate. We have two leaders, the senior vice president and president pro tempore. That's another just title correction. Couple of places where we just wanted to tidy up some language that I'll draw your attention to. Wanted to say that senators are voting in the affirmative in this phrase, and not just that 2/3 of senators vote, as in like we can't just have 1/3 of abstentions and still say the result is valid. Then Section E, elsewhere in the code, we have defined brevity of speeches as 2 minutes. So we inserted that here. Section F, again, that's just getting us in line with the Constitution changes. For the change to resolutions, we haven't previously had a mechanism for whose responsibility it is to distribute a resolution after it is signed. We propose giving that to VP for Communications, as they are responsible for, they in Title III are responsible for our communications of the GPSG out to other entities. Subsection H, we want to replace the not specific term department with the GPSG recognized term RU, representative unit, which acknowledges that some units are not departments, but they are programs or curricula, things like that. I think that might, let's skip down, Katie, to the hearing committee. That big line of blue in subsection K. I think you might have gone past it. Yeah, there it is. So we just wanted to clarify where these hearings are happening. They're happening in ONA, and that's the decision that would then be appealed. It was a little bit ambiguous whether that hearing was taking place within the legislative branch or within the judicial branch. So we're hoping that's clarity there. In the next section, it made it sound like you had to ask permission to resign from a committeeship, but instead we're saying we're giving that agency to committee members who want to resign. Renumbering things. Okay, section 3, we have this previous amendments to the code were updated in the body of the code, but not in tables of contents. So that's all that's doing here in section A. We're just in section C here, we're just correcting that it kind of sounded like you had to serve somewhere in the GPSG prior to being eligible for that office, which is not the case. So we wanted to make that clear. All right, on the next page here, we have several insertions of ex officio roles. These ex officio roles already exist. They exist in Title II. However, we perpetually have had executive board members who are derelict in their duties to be present at meetings of the Senate committees that they are assigned to as ex officio members. So as a way to sort of fill that hole that's been happening, we are just reiterating their responsibility to attend those meetings by placing it also in Title III. So I just want to stress that these officers are already expected to be ex officio members on these committees, with the exception of the chief of staff. That one is new, and it's reduplicated in the second code audit bill that we're about to look at. But yeah, putting this information in Title III is a way to ensure that everybody who needs to know their information knows it. Moving along. Oh, this is that section JKL is the section that Senator Bakita was just talking about, where there's a little bit of slippage between executive branch and executive board. The executive board is defined specifically as just the president, chief of staff, senior vice president, and all other vice presidents. So by expanding the reach here to executive branch, we are then including all of the directors of the cabinet and anyone, I suppose, who is a member of a cabinet committee and external appointments. That's all that's happening here, just making that specificity available. Correcting a couple of problems there with code citations that have changed in the past. Let me see, I don't think there's anything else here that I feel needs introduction, but I am happy to hear. Oh, I suppose we should just look at section 9 real quick. Units are able to change the title of their RU as recognized by the GPSG following a process that's laid out in Title II. And that process was exercised by the unit formerly known as Geography, which will now be known as Geography and Environment. So we've just put that into the code audit here. I'm happy to open it up to questions or comments from other members of the committee as well.
Comments or questions? Senator Bakita.
Sure, other people must have some questions, but section 2, subsection G of this bill, which changes or specifies that the responsibility for resolution sending falls on the VP for communications. This seems, I'm a little concerned that this change somewhat confuses the process for resolutions, because resolutions specifically are the voice of the Senate. They're not the voice of the executive branch, and tasking a member of the executive board with sending the Senate's communication is something I have questions about, as in the past, the senior vice president has sent these. Could you clarify if that is an intended crossover?
Katie, do you want me to take that one, or do you want to take that one?
I'll just comment on it as the senior vice president. It's just not defined, and I have done it because no one else has really been determined that they had to do it, but that is about it. Like, that's all, as far as the thought process went. And so the thought was just that the vice president of communications, they already handle communications. It might make sense for them to be doing our external communication.
I'll add to that just to say that some of our resolutions in the past, and more so recently, have become really sprawling in the number and variety of recipients that we're sending these resolutions to. So it is important that we figure out whose job it is to do that work, because it's becoming a bigger task as we're writing more resolutions and sending them to more people. We also felt that the VP for communications, because they're in the work of communications, is probably better equipped than the senior vice president or president pro tem to locate contact information for, for example, the White House or the senators from this state. That sort of thing was also a consideration as well.
Were there other
Thank you.
hands in the room? Comments? No. Senator Akita, did you?
Sorry, may I be recognized?
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Another thought that I had for the senator is that I do recognize your concern about resolutions being the voice of the Senate and not that of the GPSG. I do agree with that, and I don't think that it's necessarily I don't necessarily think that a communication coming from the VP for communications must be construed as being the voice of the entire GPSG, especially if it is prefaced with on behalf of the GPSG Senate or on behalf of the legislative branch of the graduate and professional student government, to sort of create those delineations and insulate the executive and judicial branches from actions of the legislative branch as pertains to resolutions.
As that was a response to me, I'll clarify. That seems all right. Since it says that it shall be the responsibility of VP of Communications to ensure that it is distributed, this doesn't bind it. The resolution could still say the senior vice president must send it. And so I don't have any issues. It seems fine to put in a sort of a doorstop on it.
It's probably good. I need Luke to check me, make sure I'm doing my stuff anyway. Yeah, go ahead, Senator King.
Ben King, Public Administration. I'd like to move the question in debate.
Sure. Do I hear a second? Any objections? Any objections on Zoom? Nope, hearing none. Motion passes. We will move on. Okay, we will now move on to 54-053, 2024 Code Audit 2. Kendall, do you want to introduce this bill?
I
This
sure
one's
can. Well, it's shorter in the number of pages, that is true. So this section of the code audit proposes to make changes to the way things currently operate in the name of transparency and efficiency and accountability. So Section 1, subsection A, this sort of addresses what happens if we have a vacancy in the president pro tempore role, whether that vacancy occurs because we don't have any nominees at the beginning of the semester, or if someone resigns from the office. We don't have a way to fill the gap until someone is elected to fill that office. So what we've said here is that the R&J chair will be performing the duties of president pro tempore as assigned by the senior vice president, which we thought was important because it means that it recognizes that the R&J chair already has a quote unquote full-time job as a committee chair, and that the senior vice president would be asking the R&J chair to perform only those essential PPT duties until the Senate can reconvene and see if they can fill that vacancy, and allowing that some duties of the PPT can either be performed by the senior vice president or left undone for the interim until the office is filled. Okay, we have heard year after year that there is a lack of institutional knowledge and built transitions. So we are proposing that we build a process of creating transition documents within each of the standing committees, which will be managed by the GPSG director of data collection and assessment, whose job it will be to ensure that they reach the hands of the next person filling that that standing committee chairship. In the next section, we propose switching the vice presidents appointed to travel awards and appropriations. The reasoning behind this was that the VP for Finance does many more transactions with the Travel Awards Committee than with the Appropriations Committee. And so having them in that space makes more sense. As previously discussed, we also would like to see the Chief of Staff appointed to ONA. This is a new appointment for that officer. Currently, the only ex officio appointee to ONA is the PPT, a member of the legislative branch. It's the only committee currently whose only ex officio appointee is from within the same branch. Committees are able to have 2 appointees ex officio, and we think adding the Chief of Staff is a really beneficial alignment of the remit of the ONA committee and the work of the Chief of Staff, since they're both managing personnel. Future of the GPSG committee. This is one of our committees that we only convene by statute every 5 years, but the president has the power to convene this committee at any time. We felt that should the president elect to convene the committee outside of that 5-year period, they might have a very compelling, like an ad hoc issue that they might want to address with the future of the GPSG committee. And so we felt it would be important to give the president the discretion to add anyone else deemed necessary and proper to help them address that concern, provided that those members are approved by the rest of the future of the GPSG membership, who are there by, what's the word? By statute. So those senators, those at-large members, and the executive board. Excuse me, I'm talking a lot. Okay. Responsibility for compilation. This is sort of another, this is another crossing T's and dotting I's place where we're trying to make sure that powers and responsibilities that are written in Title II are also written in Title III, and that everybody knows them. So this has to do with those transition documents and mid-year and end-of-year reports. Let's see, presidential elections. Katie, I would like to kick this over to you at this point because I know that you had more conversations with BOE about this section than I did.
Yes. Okay, you caught me mid-bite. Okay,
I
so
am
I'll say
sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'll say quickly on the section for elections. There's currently inconsistency with the fact that the code currently requires that the GPSG presidential election occur 7 days after the student body president election. However, we also require that there be a bunch of things that happen with more than 7 days in advance, right? And so you can see if it's supposed to be 7 days later, but we don't have 7 days to prepare, that's an issue. So the plan here is to basically just push the GPSG presidential election 1 week later so that it'll allow us to have a full election cycle. It's not going to be a full 3-week cycle. We kind of crunched it a little bit because we can't have the president elected too late or they will be unable to fill positions because you don't have a lot of time to do that. But this is something that was specifically requested by the Board of Elections is for us to clarify this. And so now it will mean that next year we won't have the weird, crazy confusion that we had this year in terms of the presidential election. Same thing with the Senate elections. There were a couple of places where the BOE was basically like forced to pick a particular day that was actually not great for the election. And so we've changed the language to, instead of being it shall occur 8 days, it's at least 8 days, meaning that the Board of Elections has a small amount of flexibility in this window to pick the most appropriate day for the election. This is both for the spring and fall. We also made one clarification here in that this is on use of government resources for elections, and this is specifically to asking the BOE to, we are able to ask the BOE to make the voter guide instead of us making the voter guide. Do you have a motion?
While we were in this section, actually, I was wondering if I could ask questions or point out some errors.
Is that okay with you, Kendall, if we do questions as we go?
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Sure. Great.
So if there's not a well-being day on the first Tuesday of September, this new language in section 4, subsection B, means that there's only one day that can ever be used for election. That's something you're aware of?
Yes. So there is currently a well-being day planned as far out as the academic calendar is planned for that first September. My plan is to look at this over the summer and evaluate this a little bit more clearly. We've been having a lot of conversations in here about moving the actual date from the first Tuesday to the second Tuesday. This is an ongoing conversation and we need to work it out a little bit more. But I think that we've got at least a full 2-year window with the knowledge that that is going to be the case to fix this.
All right, thank you. The preceding section, it says this cycle is defined in this title, and then there's no period there. Is there intended to be more to that sentence?
I think it might just be a missed period.
Then I'd like to move to capitalize title and add a period and consistency with the other subsections of this title.
Sure. Do I hear a second? Cool. I assume that's friendly. Thank you.
Definitely friendly. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We also, the rest of this is just continuing to clarify dates the way that I've previously discussed. Okay, this is maybe my spiciest addition here is there is a change in 5.005. So this year, some of you may know this, we currently, a senator is able to be elected with one write-in vote. Even if they did not register for the election. This means that if you had no intention for running for the election, some random person can write your name down and then you win. And this happened about 15 times in the last election. So I am proposing, so I don't have to deal with, well, I guess the next person doesn't have to deal with it. If someone is written in, they have to have 2 votes in order to be elected as senator. I guess technically also president, but I don't really think that is such a concern there.
Katie, maybe it's just the version that I'm looking at, but it looks like there's a missing space between at and least in this section that we should probably fix.
Second.
Oh, I see it. That's 5.006A, if you want to write that down. Okay. That's definitely friendly. Typos are good. I just mentioned it in 2 places.
Katie, real quick, I also just noticed another typo. In 5.002, we don't have a quotation mark to close the declaration of intent to run for office. So we just need to close it. I forgot to that.
That's friendly too, I think. Thank you, guys.
Great. The last thing is initiation of referendum. This is consistent with this is making our code consistent with the new constitution. I copied and pasted it out of the new
Motion
constitution.
to add of before 1/3 in that section.
That makes sense. Second?
That's friendly. Yep. Second.
Perfect. Okie dokie.
Do you want me to take back over or?
It's up to you. Either way.
Sure,
Good
I'll go on
preference.
with this one.
Okay.
So R&J worked in conjunction with the Travel Awards chair on this part of the code, as the GPS code does give the Travel Awards Committee jurisdiction over this section. So I just want to preface all of section 5 of the bill with that. So what you're seeing in subsection A here is a relic from when we used to have not monthly travel award cycle deadlines, but we had an early and a late deadline that divided each semester into 2 halves. So we would only have 4 travel award application periods in a calendar year. So somehow we've done that for a couple of years, and we missed the fact that the code still has this old 8 cycles thing as the way we calculate a year. But if we were to use that today, it would say that we only have 8 months, and then you become eligible for another travel award, when we clearly intend for it to be 2 years. So we've determined to just change that to 24 months following the date of travel, knowing that sometimes applicants are being awarded funding, in November for travel that will occur in January, that sort of thing. Then, just to be extra clear about it, we said that you shall become eligible again in the 25th month following travel. It was the opinion of our travel awards chair that this was an oversight from a previous change that raised the caps of the other categories of funding from $400 to $800. Somehow we think professional development got missed, but we'd like to propose raising that cap so that it is consistent with the other categories of travel.
Motion to strike domestic from that to make it fully consistent with the others. The others all say the maximum individual award for travel is $800. We used to have different individual, domestic, and international. International was $800, domestic was $400. I think, so I'd like to move to strike domestic here from that line as well.
That is friendly to me, but I think we would need to have approval from the Travel Awards Committee via their chair.
Travel would consider that friendly.
Thank you. Okay, so for the record, we will strike domestic from, what is this section? Yep. Section 5, subsection B of the bill. Here in the next section, we're just proposing to strike the code citations because they're all out of date. And there's the potential that we could put other criteria in other parts of the code and title. Similarly to subsection D, let's see, travel awards cycles. Okay, so we had references within Title 8 to the incorrect appendices. So this is just updating those. Financial regulations. Okay, here we just had some titles of offices that were out of date, so we tried to update those. Moving into the appendices, we proposed to strike the entirety of Appendix B, which had recommended sanctions for Board of Elections violations. Not only is the content of those violations in that chart out of date, we would have needed to update it anyway. This information appears in the, I believe, Joint Code and Student Constitution, but maybe it's just the Joint Code. So it doesn't need to appear in the GPSG code. Getting rid of that freed us up to introduce the aforementioned list of abbreviations as an appendix to the code without having to renumber all the other appendices. I don't think we need to go into all of these content. And there might be some errors in there anyway. Okay, Appendix C. This is that, if anyone's ever looked at Appendix C, we used to have a chart that showed how one would calculate a 2-year period of ineligibility under our old system, where we had early and late semester cycles instead of monthly cycles. So we've proposed to just strike that because people know how calendars work if we tell them that they're ineligible for 24 months. That is the end of the bill, so we can open it to further discussion.
Okay, that's a big one, but it's a good one, I think. I see, yeah, Duncan, go ahead.
So I had a question on an earlier section. Forgive me as I don't immediately remember the the subsection name, but it was the part which it was the section which amends the write-in process such that a write-in candidate would require 2 votes in order to win. My question is on, I'm asking for clarification on that. So say you had an RU doing an election where you had 1 registered candidate and 1 write-in candidate, and they both receive 1 vote. In this case, does the registered candidate automatically win, or do you proceed to runoff?
That's a good question, and I thought about this. And I thought about it, and I was hoping no one would notice. No, I'm no, I think that's a really valid question. The question is, at what point do they basically get disqualified, right? Is it either once a winner is determined, but then it's determined that that winner cannot be elected, it doesn't go to the other person, or is it immediately right off the bat, if they don't get enough votes, then do they get dropped out? I'm almost wondering if we could change it if you want to specify it. It's a valid question. I don't really have a perfect answer for you. I mean, I'm okay with punting it just to the BOE and having them make the decision. But if that's not something we want to do, then we can change it. I think I see Senator Bakita's hand first.
Yeah, Senator Bakita. Could we fix it by just making it required that all candidates must receive at least 2 votes in order to be elected?
It's up to you. I personally think if someone took all the time to register and they only voted for themselves, maybe that's enough. But I think it depends. The reason I worry is because let's say we have a unit with like 9 people in it. That's a really large percentage of your unit you have to get to vote for you to get to 2 votes. So that's why I'm wondering, maybe not. But I think there's an argument both ways.
I'd like to speak on that also, because that's something that I had been, actually both comments, the issue of runoff and the issue of 2 votes for all candidates are things that I had been thinking about. What the issue that we are trying to resolve with this writing candidates must have 2 votes is the condition in which I'm a constituent in a unit and I write in someone else's name, and that is the only vote that is cast for that one person. And it presumes that there were no registered candidates, or a multiple way tie between lots of people who received 1 vote and they weren't the one to cast the vote for themselves, if that makes sense. We can write in, but let me put it, that's sort of my comment to address Senator Bakita. To address Senator McLean about the definition of a write-off, I think that's a great idea. I think that if you have language prepared to amend it, I think I'd be interested in hearing it and putting it into the bill. However, I don't think that passing the bill as written tonight forecloses on future amendments where the process of triggering a runoff can be defined more fully in these sort of far-fetched situations.
Senator Malosi, go ahead.
I'd like to motion the question.
All right. There is a motion to move the question.
Second.
There's a second. Are there any objections? Any objections on Zoom? Okay. Seeing none, the motion passes. We will move on. I'm very excited about this bill. That's all I'll say. I think it's great stuff. Okay, we will now move on to 54. We're almost there, people. We're really close to the end. We will move on to 54-054, enact to fund travel awards for cycle 7. Senator Malosi, if you want to introduce this. Oh, you're somewhere fun. I like your background.
Thank you. We're traveling with our daughter for her Easter up at grandparents. We'll make this quick then. We received a lot of applications. In fact, we received a historically large number of applications for this last cycle. Traditionally, we received between 40 and 50. This time we received in excess of 70 applications for this. So this made it extremely challenging despite our budgeting and our best efforts to have a slush fund of money ready to go. We still, which you'll see my second bill on this, but we had a lot of good applicants. And due to this, it was really challenging to make a lot of decisions. So out of the 74 applications that we received, I believe on this one, Katie, we are funding 23 of them. We're requesting funds for 23 of them, which then entirely exhausts, yeah, there you go, entirely exhausts our travel award fund as we currently have it. And so these are the 23 that we're recommending. There's 7 of them that we are requesting in the second bill, which will be up shortly, to fund those travel awards as well. And then we feel that those 30 applications are the best of the group that we received for the travel award cycle. And these will be traveling from April until June, if I remember correctly. It's the June as well. So a lot of applications here and a lot of people we'd like to fund. So with that, I'll open up for any questions.
Any questions? Okay, I see none. Oh, just kidding.
Next
Senator
bill's me
Winter.
as well. Oh, go ahead, Kendall.
Thanks, Kendall Winter, Musicology. I just wanted to ask about well, first of all, compliments on all the work that you guys did with a historically high
Thanks.
number of applicants. But I noticed that one solution to fund a greater number of people was that you reduced the size of the award to, it looks like on average about $350, lots of 300s, lots of 500s. So I'm just wondering what you think the long-term sustainability is of keeping our cap at $800 for individual awards.
Yeah, that's a great question. I still think 800 is the appropriate amount because some people really do write really good applications. And the one application I believe that we're funding in full, they wrote a really excellent application, and I think we're pretty happy to fund them. You know, I will say the trade-off is that when everyone has the option to go for $800, everyone obviously would like to get $800.
Sure.
You know, with that being said, though, is that, you know, we try and keep that in mind. A, where they're traveling. B, what budget, if they've included a budget, you know, and how well the application was written are the things that we're considering when making the final determination on funding on that. So I still think $800 is the appropriate amount because conferences have continuously gotten more expensive in addition to traveling. So I would still say keep the $800 budget. In this particular month, I think you're going to see us being a little bit later on the budget. And that was just so that this way we could try and fund as many people as possible. If you look at prior months, we did fund several of them at the full amount that they requested.
Yeah.
This month we're particularly tight because A, we didn't expect to get 74 applications. And B, we had to try and make our budget last as much as we could. So it just meant that we were a little bit tighter on what we would award out because in this month, we took the approach of there are so many good applications that we would like to fund as many as we can in sending, you know, and I think we try to keep most of them, you know, above $300 if we could, out of the fact that A, make it meaningful, and B, try and fund as many people as we could.
Thanks.
Awesome. Anything else? Oop, anything else? Nope. Okay, great stuff. Moving on to
I think my bill as well, Katie.
Yes. 54-055. I do need a motion to convene committee of the whole because this bill did not pass through committee.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any objections? Okay, we will now convene the committee of the whole. My understanding is we don't really do anything differently, but
no.
I think we're
So
supposed
this
to do
one is
that.
this is just continued funding of it. These are the other list of applicants that we would like to try and get funded as well within this. The reason why we're bringing it to the whole thing is we didn't have time to go through the finance committee by the time we got done during the entire review process, and not to put the additional burden on finance to try and convene over the weekend and have an emergency session. Now we just would bring it to you guys as a whole and say, can we fund these additional allocations? We're not requesting that much more. but we do think these are applicants that are worthy of funding.
Great. Comments, questions? Senator Boyer, go ahead.
William Boyer from the School of Information and Library Science. Does the Finance Committee and other more knowledgeable individuals about finance, do they endorse this? Like, I know we have some read a lot of money to go around, but we can't burn through that willy-nilly. So is this $2,300 okay?
Sure. Senator Bakita.
Yeah, so we got a report from VP for Finance right at our last meeting, and travel awards thus far this year, a significant amount of the funds have not been claimed. And so it is possible that we're not actually going to end up spending any more money by sort of notationally allocating these additional funds. And we have plenty of reserve. So I think this is a great idea. I supported, the idea was brought before finance. We were alerted, but we didn't have time to hold a meeting. I voiced support, nobody else voiced any opinions. So that's what we have.
That's one of the affirmative. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we will continue on. Oh, Joel, I'm so sorry.
We
I
have
didn't see
one
your
on
hand.
Zoom.
Yeah, thanks. This is Joel from Epidemiology, Chair of Finance Committee. Yeah, I would just echo Senator Bakita's comments, but also I would just note that that this past or the current year, we have significantly spent our reserve funds. Granted, I mean, I don't think that this $2,000 some line item would, necessarily like adversely affect our budget. But do just kind of want to put it on the Senate's radar is that balance in our reserve fund is approaching about 25,000 or so. And perhaps our VP of Finance can give a more concrete number. But in summary, I'm also in favor of this allocation.
Joel, I'm not sure that that number is correct. Because I don't know if it includes all of the revenue for this year.
Right, yeah, is our VP Finance available?
I don't think he's on the meeting, but I can't actually speak.
He's in Zoom, it looks like.
Sorry, my microphone was messing up. Hello, everyone. I am out today as I am ill. Wish I could be there in person. I was still trying to get the numbers on our latest revenue because that has not hit the QSO sheets yet. But we definitely do have more than 25,000 in the reserve. I just don't have the exact concrete number on that yet.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this bill? Going once, going twice. Nope. Okay, moving on. Thank you so much, Nick. Thanks for the great work that Travel Awards has done this year. It's been awesome. Okie dokie. We're gonna move on now to Finance Committee stuff. Okay, 54-056, an act to create fall and spring unit allocations. And the author is now Joshua. So Joshua, you have to introduce it.
Yay. All right, you've all heard me enough. All this does is, right now we do allocations at the end of the year. Since we now require town hall earlier in the year, it removes a significant impediment to calculating allocations earlier. This defines a new term, a half session, which is roughly equivalent to a semester, but we have 8 Senate meetings. So just the first 4 Senate meetings is 1 half session. The second 4 Senate meetings is the second half session. And so now allocations are computed at the end of each half session using the same rules as before, but using just data from each half session. You are not required to use your allocation after the fall half session. You can still pool them as before. There are no other, that's the sort of meat of the bill.
Great. Are there any questions on this? Anything on Zoom? No. Okay. I'm pumped about this one. Okay, we continue on. I guess I'm excited. I've said that about every single bill. I'll stop saying that. Let's move on now to 54-057, an act to approve the GPSG annual budget for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. I do want to make a note that the document that was uploaded when I sent out the original thing on a couple days ago, there were some small edits. And I don't know what they are, but I re-uploaded the new version, and the one on Canvas is the new version. Callista is the primary author, but whoever wants to introduce it, if Callista, are you here?
I don't believe she's here, but I'm happy to introduce the bill.
Go ahead.
Yep, so this is Joel from epidemiology. So here we have a bill for the upcoming school year, fiscal year 24-25. And to begin, we had to significantly reduce our operating budget. So for the current year, we had $161,812 and I'm sorry, $161,812 $98, and then we had to update our total revenues using projected costs. And so we did work closely with our VP Finance to calculate the projected revenue, which in this case is $157,745.33, which is a reduction of just over $4,000. So essentially going into the creation of this new budget for the upcoming year did require reducing many of the line items. So what you'll see here is first, in consultation with the current VP Finance and incoming GPSG president, we did recommend the elimination of the comptroller line item, which is in the auxiliary personnel. And that's not necessarily within our purview in terms of eliminating the position. That would fall under Rules and Judiciary Committee. But that is something that we're recommending, since that position hasn't necessarily been filled, and incoming GPSG president doesn't plan to fill that position as well. So in that case, that line item is $0. And so we'd humbly ask for Rules and Judiciary Committee to consider eliminating that position, comptroller. Moving forward, we reduced executive travel to $2,500. We've modified town hall funding to $5,325. We've reduced travel awards to $27,500. We have removed both social appropriations and Senate appropriations as 2 separate line items, and instead combined both appropriations into 1 line item. So now it's both social and Senate appropriations. And then we've also reduced the mentorship awards down to $500. And we have updated our reserve fund contribution to 33 cents. Those are the major updates to the proposed budget, and happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Senator Bakita?
Yeah, I have one minor motion. I think since neither of the code audit bills, this was being developed alongside the code audit bills. I don't think either code audit bills actually struck the comptroller text from the code yet.
Yeah, the reason is because we needed a little more time to do it, but the intention is to do it. But we didn't want to kill all of the code because some of that needs to get moved to other places.
Okay, that's what I presumed. But that does require one small amendment to this bill. If you could go up to section 1, bullet item 2, if you could strike the rest of the line after auxiliary personnel.
Wait.
Sorry, section 1, bullet 2. Yeah.
Oh, section 1. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. There we go. Section 1, that bullet 2, where it says eliminate the comptroller line item from auxiliary personnel to align. Just striking the to align and following. So it just reads eliminate the comptroller line item from auxiliary personnel. This is okay, even though the comptroller position is still in the code, because we are just budgeting $0 for the comptroller because we do not intend to fill that position.
Good stuff. Do I hear a second for that motion? I assume it is friendly since you're one of the authors. So, okay. Any other questions or comments? I see in glazed eyes. Okay, Senator Winter.
Hi, Senator Winter, Musicology. I'm concerned about the reduction in the travel awards line item, considering that despite their very careful and conservative budgeting throughout the entire semester, they still came up short on their budget to meet the demands in this cycle. I also feel that this is done. I think, yes, appropriations is also growing, but I don't think we've seen the same conservative budgeting from that committee this year. And so I am just wondering if you could, for me, justify why you are raising one fund and you are decreasing the other in ways that sort of disincentivize careful budgeting.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So Joel Begay, Epidemiology Chair of Finance. So just to clarify, we are not necessarily increasing appropriations, but rather it looks inflated because, again, it's a combination of both social and Senate appropriations. So there's no increase in appropriation allocation funding. As far as travel awards, it's technically in comparison to last year's initial allocation, it was $29,290. So we're reducing it by less than $2,000 in terms of the initial allocation for the current year. So essentially what we had to do, our approach in creating the proposed budget specifically for this line item, was we had to zero out our budget, and essentially what that does is it places GPSG in a position to consider future reallocations if needed. So for example, tapping into reserve funds if needed. And as we heard from VP of Finance, we have more than 25K in our reserve fund, which is great. So in that case, GPSG would be able to request for additional fund reallocation.
Thank you. And thank you for correcting me and explaining the combination as giving the appearance of an increase in spending, when really it's just now one fund under the same name. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Pelosi, I see your hand.
Yeah, and I'll keep this short in the interest of time, and I know everyone's been here for a while. First thing I'll say is Travel Awards was never consulted on any of this within the discussion of our budget or the changes in our Travel Awards budget. So, I mean, I would say keep that in mind, is that no one from Travel Awards has been discussed or made aware of this. This is the first we are finding out of it. And I will say a Travel Award budget of 27,000 puts us at a lower amount that was pre-COVID. During prior to COVID, the Travel Award amount was 35,000. So keeping in mind with inflation, increased travel costs, increased conference costs, all those types of things that, lowering travel award is going to significantly impact A, what we can award to students, and B, how many can be awarded. And I truly do think one of the greatest things that GPSG does is awarding our travel awards to students. And I think that's pretty evident by the several hundred applications we received this year. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you for that comment.
Okay.
This is, may I, Katie?
Yeah, go ahead, Joel. You can reply to that.
Yeah, this is Joel, Epidemiology, Chair of Finance. Just wanted to say thank you for that comment, and just reiterate Senator Bakita's comment, which is that there's X number of funds for travel awards that have not yet been claimed. So even though it may seem like this is not sufficient, we're still kind of waiting for all of those claims to actually for the record keeping to be updated. And that's something that we've been working closely with our VP Finance. Yes.
Great. Senator Stahl.
Yeah, I would just like to offer a point of information that I do believe that it says increase the Senate appropriations. We've already established that that is moving around between the two funds, but I do believe that that is actually a decrease in the total appropriations fund. I believe last year it was $35,000 when you added Senate appropriations and social appropriations. So I just want to make that note. And then I also want to remind the Senate that as of tonight, if tonight's bill is passed, the Appropriations Committee will have allocated close to $56,000 in this session. So I just want to make everyone aware of that. If any senators have issues with the way that funds are managed in the Appropriations Committee, I invite you to join the committee next year.
Point of information, my understanding is that that's actually not correct. That was the amount of money that was originally allocated to appropriations was $30,000. There was an additional bill that is often passed that then allocates some money from our reserve. We passed like one big reserve allocation bill. Last time it was passed at the same time as our budget. This year it's not. And so it was $30,000 and then we tacked on that extra from the reserve. And so it's the same. It's just that reserve budget or reserve allocation bill has not yet been done, but can still be done in the fall.
All right, I'll redact my statement, but still that we had $35,000 moving forward from the first meeting.
Yeah. Any hands? Senator Bakita, go ahead.
Yeah. So I have a variety of different responses to some of these questions. So as of February, I believe we determined that only $26,000 had actually been expended for travel, whereas we've allocated after this bill, I believe close to almost $40,000. And so there's some room, I think, I think Travel Awards has done an excellent job, to be clear. The Finance Committee has no concerns about how Travel Awards is operated. And in light of that, looking at, there's something I think to be improved in how we do our accounting potentially, and there's still room for reserve allocation bills here. Secondly, I wanted to address the matter of that Travel Awards has shrunk. So Travel Awards was $33,000 before the pandemic, both years, the 49th and 50th Senates. Then we dropped it to $25,000 for 2 years. In last year's budget, we bumped it back up to a little over $29,000. Whereas appropriations has dropped from almost 40,000 down to 30,000. So appropriations has been cut much more heavily in the past 5 years than Travel Awards has. However, given that I think some of the debate in this meeting has centered around, is this a judgment about one of the committees or the other and how they're using their funds? This was not the intent of the Finance Committee, and I think I would like to make a motion to amend this bill to make that clearer by cutting, rather than cutting right now, we cut $1,790 from Travel Awards. instead to just cut 790 from travel awards and then cut 1,000 off of the Senate appropriations line. So the specific amendments would be section 1 bullet 5 would be changed to 28,500. And then section 1 item 7 would be changed to 29,000. And those changes would also be reflected in appendix 1.
Okay. Do I hear a second for that? Okay, I hear a second. Objection.
Objection.
Okay. I guess technically we'll move into discussion about the amendment now, if there is any. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and do a vote. Unless did I miss someone on Zoom? Oh, no, okay. We'll go ahead and do a vote. We're gonna do a hand vote once again. Okay, so just as a reminder, in order to do the hand vote, those of you on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature when I call your the particular thing so you can vote. All in favor of Senator Bakita's amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, I got those in the room. All right. Everyone on Zoom, now please put your hands down. All right. All opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. I forgot to do that last time by accident. Wait, quick math, sorry. Dang, okay. Based off of the hand votes, I have that it is one vote short of passing. So normally what we would now do in this scenario is a roll call vote because it is short. Can you hand me the sign-in sheet? Because I'm gonna use it.
Just a quick point of clarification, I guess.
Yep.
Can I get the vote count just for the minutes?
Yeah. Wait, let me check my math one more time. Oh, I'm sorry, I added wrong. It does pass. I made a mistake. Hold on, I'm gonna pull out my calculator. I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. Just if someone wants to come check me, since I don't have a pro temp up here, feel free. Okay, it fails by half of a vote, actually. So we're gonna do a quick roll call vote. I'm just gonna call the people who, oh, I don't have virtual attendance. Okay, I'm gonna go really, really fast. pay attention. Accounting, advanced dental education, American studies, anthropology, applied physical sciences, art, biochemistry and biophysics, bioinformatics and computational biology.
Yes.
Ooh, what was that yes for? Oh, that was Alice. Okay. Yes. Biological and biomedical sciences.
Nay.
Biology.
Aye.
Biomedical and health. Oh, sorry. There's biology. Right?
Yeah, aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Biomedical and health informatics. Biomedical engineering.
Aye.
Biostatistics.
Abstain.
Business PhD.
Aye.
Business MBA. Cell biology and physiology. Chemistry. City and regional planning. Classics. Communication studies. Computer science.
Aye.
Dentistry. Dramatic art. Ecology. Economics.
Abstain.
Education. Okay. Education. English. Environmental sciences and engineering.
Aye.
Epidemiology.
Aye.
Genetics and molecular biology. Geography and environment.
Aye.
Geological sciences. Germanic and Slavic languages and literature. Global studies. Health behavior. Health policy and management.
Nay.
History.
Aye.
Human movement science. Oh, I see I in the chat. Information library science. Law. Linguistics. Marine sciences. Maternal and child health. Mathematics.
Approved.
Media. Okay, that was mathematics. Yeah. Okay. Media and journalism. Medicine. Microbiology and immunology. Musicology.
Aye.
Nutrition. Occupational therapy. Pathology. Pharmaceutical sciences PhD. Pharmacology. PharmD. Philosophy. Physical therapy. Physics and astronomy.
Abstain.
Political science. Public administration.
I'd like a point of clarification on what we're voting on right now.
We're voting, sure. We are voting on the amendment that was proposed by Senator Bakita to change.
Nay.
Oh, okay, you're good. Yeah, we're checking the vote because it was too close for me to use. Okay, public health leadership, public policy.
Aye.
Rehabilitate. Okay. Aye. Rehabilitation, counseling, and psychology. Religious studies. Romance studies. Sociology. Statistics and operations research. Toxicology PhD. I don't think the postdoctoral unit gets to vote on this. Okay. But it's in there. Okay. Give me 1 second to do some math. Do you want to help me do some math?
Point of clarification, city planning, human movement science, philosophy, comms, and public health leadership all chatted a voice vote aye. Did any of you also speak a voice vote aye? Great, okay. And I have the count at 15 yes, 4 no, 7 abstain, which is a majority.
Okay, that motion passes. Good stuff. Always a good time doing a roll call vote. Okay. Are there any other pieces of discussion or motions or anything on the bill? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to, I accidentally forgot to put the number on the front of this bill. That's my bad. This is 54-058 appropriations for April. Senator Stahl, you want to bring us home?
Yes, this is our April appropriations bill. We had 14 applicants. We've allocated a little over $21,000, and that would leave $8,000 left in our budget.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Senator Winter.
Hi, Kendall Winter, Musicology. Of any of your 14 applicants, were there any that were denied funding in this cycle?
I do not believe so. Just as you can see, one or two were partially funded.
Thank you. May I ask a follow-up question if there are no other hands?
Sure.
I see that there are some programs in here. I'm looking at the Winspire program, which is a summer research program career fair. Do you know the date of that event off the top of your head? Or from the application?
Yes, that'll be taking place on July 18th.
Okay. I don't believe that event is eligible to be qualified in this cycle per the schedule that's published on the GPSG website, which says that this cycle is to be funding events that take place between basically now, April, and May 6th. So I'd like to motion that that be struck from the bill and considered over summer governance.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Any objections?
Objection.
Okay. We'll move into discussion about that motion. Does anyone want to say anything? Senator Bakita's looking like you're going to say something.
Yeah, Senator Bakita, Joshua, computer science. Kendall, do you have a code citation for where the cycles are? I'm trying to find it right now. I'm having trouble.
I don't, because they appear on the website, the GPSG website. And I can pull that up really quickly, but I probably won't be able to screen share that with everyone. But the rules for summer programming are that their applications are to be sent a month before the event. And as this event is scheduled for July and we are in April, that event should be considered by summer governance around June.
Point of information, Brian, when is the end of the fiscal year?
July 1 is the start of the new year. June 30th is the end of that year. But spending can get a bit tricky in June, just depending on the way in which it needs to be done.
But so if their program's in July, they would actually fall into the next fiscal year?
Technically, but it's also the budget for GPSG doesn't quite go in that same way because of all the professional schools. Since they're on different cycles, some professional schools will continue to give money to GPSG throughout the year, given fee structures and stuff. And really the spending of fiscal year is more so a concern around the state budget stuff, but you all are student fees, it's a bit different.
Cool. I just wanted to check that that wasn't part of this conversation or not. Okay. Yes, any more discussion on this motion? Senator Beck.
I just wanted to clarify, they requested money for this event last year as well. And we had to deny it. So it went through summer governance and then came to us in September, I guess it was, for the first appropriations meeting. We had to deny it due to that 1 month rule where they didn't get it in, quote unquote, in time, even though it technically wasn't voted on until September anyway. And then, so they were just getting ahead of the ball this year so that way they can actually get funding.
Sure, Senator McLean.
Duncan McLean, Physics and Astronomy. If I may add something, I went ahead and looked on the GPSG's website, and I think that it would appear to me, looking at the Senate Appropriations event timeline table on the page of the same name, it says if your event occurs between the dates of May 7th and October 7th, you should submit an application by, and the value given is 1 month before, so that you can receive approval 2 weeks before the event date. So it would seem to me that this doesn't necessarily set a hard limit as to when we could fund this, does it? I'm not sure if this is elaborated on somewhere else as to when exactly the funding cycle has to, when it has to be submitted to be considered. But they're a month before it. So I just wanted to submit that for consideration.
Okay, Luke.
Yeah, I'll say as the author of that piece of the website, that was indeed the intention. Duncan is reading that correctly. That was the intention behind that statute.
Okay, we'll now go to Kendall because I saw Kendall's hand. I was trying to get everyone who hadn't spoken. We'll now go to Kendall.
Yeah, thanks. I think that since we've had this issue with summer funding, I remember dealing with this a couple of times on summer governance when I've served there before. And perhaps this is an invitation to review our Senate appropriations cycles and perhaps adopt something that's got more functionality to it, and or pass a summer appropriations budget that sort of brackets money off to a new fund that's not tied to our annual budget in the same way, so that we can deal with these special cases over the summer. That'd be a good project for summer governance and or appropriations, R&J, finance to tackle next year.
Okay, Senator Bakita.
Yeah, Senator Bakita, computer science. So a similar question to one I've asked in some of these past bills. This Windspire organization.
Sorry, we are still in discussion about the motion. Is this germane to the motion?
Yes, actually, this is
Okay,
on
then perfect.
Windspire.
I just wanted to check.
This summer research program career fair, according to their website, is for local high school students who identify as historically marginalized gender in STEM. And I'm not entirely clear why we are funding that and not a high school.
Sure. Yeah, Senator Beck.
So according to their application, it is a career fair during this summer research program, which yes, is for high school students, but the career fair does include a lot of programming for graduate students, as what, like, mainly. And then, so according to their applications, we actually went line by line on their budget, and we decided to approve everything that would allow them to have the event, period. So that way it does benefit these graduate students. And then we are only partially funding their request for food, because obviously some of that food would go to the high school students and not to the graduate students. So also their requested budget is not their total budget, and that's why it doesn't look that much different.
All right, Hashem on Zoom, go ahead.
Hashim Amir, economics. I would like to point out that, the undergraduate Senate funds conferences that are dedicated to high schoolers all the time. It's just that they're organized by undergrads. So the Model UN conference, I think it's called MUNCH, that is for high schoolers. It's organized by undergrads, and the undergrad Senate does fund that. So there is precedence for us funding things that are dedicated to high schoolers, but organized by UNC students.
All right, Senator Pelosi.
I'd like the motion on this question.
Sure. Okay, so there's now another motion. So this is inside of the other motion to basically end discussion.
Second.
I hear a second. Are there any objections?
Object.
Okay, there's an objection. So we're going to do a hand vote on whether or not we end discussion on the motion to strike this line. So we're going to do, Kendall, do you mind putting your hand down? So thank you so much. We are going to do the same thing we've been doing. So all in favor of of ending discussion, moving the question, please raise your hand. Okay. Put your hands down. Everyone on Zoom, please put your hands down. Everybody put your hands down on Zoom. There's one more person with their hand up. Thank you. All opposed to ending discussion, please raise your hand. Okay. Put your hands down on Zoom. And any abstentions, please raise your hand. Okay, that motion passes. Luke, do you want the numbers? Cool. I got 22, 3, 4. Okay. So we will now end discussion. We will now vote again. Now that we have ended discussion, we're now going to vote on whether or not to strike the line Women in STEM Promoting Inclusion Research Experiences Summer Research Program Career Fair from this bill. So we're now, if you're voting in favor, you are voting in favor of striking. So get a new spot on my list. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand of striking this line. Okay. All put your hands down. Sorry, put your hands down. Jump the gun. All opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. Oh, one more. Just okay. Please put your hands down. One more. Put your hands down. Thank you. All abstentions, please raise your hand. All those who abstain. Cool. That motion fails. Okay. Given that, we are still in discussion about the bill. Are there any other questions or discussion points? Senator Winter?
Hi, Senator Winter, Musicology. I would like to point out to the Senate that when we allocated $35,000 from reserves to appropriations per the bill that they wrote, 54027, back in February, Section 1 of that bill reads, and I'm quoting, "This money will specifically go towards funding social and professional events hosted by graduate student organizations and representative units held between February and April of 2024. So for that reason, I'd like to ask again about the dates for some of these events that would be happening outside of that February to April timeframe, which was presented by appropriations in their allocation bill.
Sure. Senator Ben King?
Yeah, Ben King, Public Administration. I've got a quick comment and then I've got a motion after that. I just want to reiterate, I think Senator Stahl said that there were $8,000 left in the budget. I understand where folks are coming from with regards to like language, but there's money left over. It's not like we're turning anyone down. It's going to support an organization that's been funded in the past. It's going to fund something that my understanding is encouraging women and young people of color to get involved in STEM. So I don't really see, and I know that's not what the objection is, but I just want to point that out. So I'll end my remarks with moving the question.
Okay.
Second the motion.
Okay, there is a motion and a second to move the question. Are there any
I
objections?
object.
Okay, there's an objection. We will now do a vote. We will do the same thing we've been doing. Okay, gotta flip my paper over.
Point of clarification, what are we voting on?
We are voting whether or not to move the question, meaning we will end discussion and stop talking about this bill. Yes, okay. All in favor of moving the question, please raise your hand in person and on Zoom. Okay, put your hands down. Okay, all opposed to any discussion, please raise your hands. Okay, put your hands down. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. Okie dokie. That motion passes.
Point of
To end
clarification.
discussion. Yes?
If this body were to vote by majority to include something against the rules that it is established and meant to follow, would that allow a bill to pass? As in, can we, in just a bill, by majority vote, commit an act that goes against previously defined bills, code that have been passed in this body?
It's a valid question. I wish I had a Solicitor General to tell me the answer to that question. I would say you are allowed to try to pass whatever you want. If it is determined that the bill is not allowed based off of previous bills, that's something that could be determined through, like in theory, the Student Supreme Court or some other method. But so I guess it depends on what you mean by are we allowed? Like, can we? Yeah, like in theory, unless someone else has a thought. But that is my answer to that.
Point of
Clarification.
Sure.
I defer to you, Senator Bakita.
What was the count on that vote?
Which one?
The last hand vote about ending discussion.
24-5-0. Luke, did you have was that the question?
Oh, my question was what, quick point of information request, what amount was remaining in the Winspire budget at the time the bill that's been referred to was passed? Money are fungible. If there was at least $800 remaining, then who's to say that the funds from that bill are being applied to Winspire specifically and not just to replenish this budget?
Sure. Okay. That's all the answer I got you for Fernando. Since we're at a discussion, we can't really get it too deep into it. Okay. We are now going to move on to, nope, not, I think that's it actually. No, we did it. I do want to make one point of information. I had originally submitted 54-041. It was technically put on the agenda. I withdrew it because my nominee withdrew, just in case anyone was wondering why 41's missing. Thought it would be worth mentioning. Okay. We did it. Okay, we got through all the bills, right? I didn't miss anything.
Point of information. Katie, do we have a lot to go through or can we motion to adjourn? We're rounding into 4 hours here.
Yes, we do. I have a lot. I mean, we don't have a lot, but I have some things that we need to discuss that are announcements that are important. And we have not done our updates that are required to be on our agenda. We're not gonna, it won't take forever. Okay. We can now open up the ballot. Luke, do you want to do that for me or do you got it? Okay. We're now going to move to updates. We are now going to do our final updates from GPSG President Lauren Hogginson and Student Body President Chris Everett. Lauren, do you want to come up here and, or I can, okay, yeah, that works.
Hi all, very little to
report from the last month. It's been a lot of transition talk with Katie, getting her onboarded into different meetings that I have with administrators and other meetings on campus, working on finishing up the Bill of Rights. One thing that I do need y'all's help on, if you are a graduating individual, this spring, they are making a video for graduation and are in need of graduate students who are graduating. So if you're interested in participating in this video, please email me. You're not gonna have to speak or anything like that. It's just like wear your regalia, look happy outside of the graduate school. And this is gonna be filmed on April 15th between 3:30 and 4:30. If you're interested, please email me. I'm gonna be there. Please join me. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Chris.
I'm gonna do mine from my seat today. I'm wearing some small shorts, so I don't want to get up right now, but really good to see everyone. It's just want to say first to say thank you. It's been a very tumultuous year. It's been really, really great working alongside each of you and getting to know you. So thank you so much. Also been a fairly quiet month for me. Of course, our pickleball tournament got canceled. We're looking at rescheduling it for this Saturday, but no promises because I'm a little tired. But still working on finalizing the details for our distinguished lectureship. I've had a few calls about that today. And then other than that, I don't really think I have anything to say. So thank you. Any questions from anyone?
Nothing? Well, I definitely be on behalf of the group, Chris, thank you so much for having been so wonderful about attending these meetings and participating with graduate students and being a part of this. I know we really appreciate you representing graduate and professional students, and you've done a really amazing job. And I certainly know everyone else in the room would, well, maybe I won't speak for you. I think that they all think that you did a really great job. And so we really appreciate you. So, awesome. I'm going to call for updates. Just if you have an update, give me an update. If you don't have an update, don't give me an update. Nothing from O&A. Anything from allocations. You don't have to if you don't want to. You don't have anything.
I just want to offer my sincere gratitude to the 4 members, Samantha, Caitlin, Matthew, and Rob, for their dedication to the Appropriations Committee this year.
Definitely. Anything from R&J, finance, travel, or SOGAPs?
SOGAP's approved town hall reports. They all looked pretty good. Thank you to our amazing committee members for doing their work. And that's all.
Great. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice. Okay. I forgot to update this. We do not have any leadership updates this month. The end of year report update will be coming out in a few weeks after we finish our end of year reports, but feel free to look at the mid-year report. I have a few announcements, so I promise this will be very brief. You've been here this long, you can hold up 5 more minutes. We have a couple of fairly big announcements. One, I'm very excited to announce the Pretty Huge Dance is happening on April 12th. This is going to be a dance for all master's, PhD, professional students, all graduate students and professional students can attend. It will be from 6:30 to 10:30, happening in the Carolina Club. There are tickets will be required. They're $15 each. You can buy tickets also for +1s. The tickets are going to be available on April 9th, and you need to go to this link. You need to go, oh, I put the wrong. In the announcements, I'll put the right flyer. I put this just says the word QR code. My bad. I'll put the one with the actual QR code in the announcements. But go to the website on GPSG's website for more information. It's going to be a good time. We have a couple of positions are still open. I have reopened the executive application. I'm still looking for a chief of staff, a director of community engagement, board of elections, Supreme Court justice, solicitor general, and chief legal officer. If you're interested in getting involved next year, shoot me an email. Let's talk, see if it's something that you're interested in. I'm super hoping to find some great people, and I know y'all are great people, so I think that would be great if you're interested. We are having a social event tomorrow, since I know you're all tired and don't want to go to the bar tonight. We're going tomorrow at Carolina Brewery. This is going to be, there's free food, not free booze. You have to buy your own booze, but the food is free. There's tacos. It'll be really fun. We are also going to have some people there to talk about the Student Bill of Rights. And it's gonna be a really good time. So that's 5 to 7 tomorrow. Inauguration is going to happen on April 9th. You all are welcome to join. That is where our executive board, the senators that were elected in the spring elections, and basically anyone incoming is going to be inaugurated. That's next Tuesday. You are totally welcome. There will be food. It's Graduate and Professional Student Appreciation Week, so there's a bunch of events happening across campus this week. Most of them are around midday, but there's a bunch. Check the website. There's a bunch of information. Okay, I want to talk about allocations. I will be very brief, I promise. I'm not going to talk through this whole thing. I sent all of you an email about allocations. So what is going to happen is I sent all of you a link that is what I have right now for participation points and for your attendance in the meetings. I know some of you emailed me. I didn't have time today to look at it. I'm going to look at it tomorrow. You need to look at this by 5 p.m. tomorrow so that I can finish calculating how much allocation money everyone gets. If you email me at 5:01, I'm not considering it because we got to get this in. In order to use your money, you can either make an appointment with the QSO office to use the P card, or you can purchase using reimbursement, meaning you can buy the thing and then we will reimburse you for it. You cannot transfer the money directly to your department this year. So don't send me your chart field string. We're not doing it that way. We could talk about why if you want to talk about why. If you have to submit receipts by May 1st, this is a little before the QSO deadline because we're going to have to do some paperwork. So May 1st is the deadline. Please do it before then so I don't have to do a million of them on May 1st. Not me, whoever, but you know what I mean. Are there any questions? Immediately email me if you have questions. No, is it a everyone question or just a you question? Okay, well, you can email me. I put that in there twice. Okay, and last thing I would like to do before we leave is if there are any senators who are graduating this year, can you stand in the room, please, and also raise your hand on Zoom? Because I would love to recognize everyone that has done such a great job over the past year. It's going to be leaving us. Awesome. I know for a fact there's someone on Zoom that is graduating. Okay, well, I will just say, this is kind of the last thing I have. It has truly been an honor to serve as your senior vice president this year. It has been such a joy to both work with some really wonderful senators that have been here for a long time and have a lot of knowledge to share, and also so many new amazing senators who have been super engaged. It has been such a joy, and I have really, really enjoyed this position, and I'm excited to be your president next year as well. So whatever, I'll send that to you. Results from ballot voting.
Yeah, I'm still refreshing, but everything passed by a healthy margin. I'm happy to go into specifics if anyone wants them. They'll be in the minutes. Feel free to email me.
Can you
also.
tell me the total of people that voted?
28.
Okay, that's not quorum. So that sucks. So
29 if that's quorum.
okay, so quorum. Is there anyone that has not voted that is here?
We have someone still voting on Zoom.
Okay, 1, 2 people.
Point of information. Point of information. How many do we need to make quorum?
I'll tell you the exact number. It is 38. Okay, so what that's going to mean is since
Will voting stay
uh,
open?
voting is still open.
Will
Okay,
it stay open all
we'll give it a
night,
minute.
Katie?
No, if they're not here, they're not here, and it's not counting. So, because that's not how this works. You have to be here to vote in order for it to count. Kendall, you have your hand raised. Okay.
Sorry, that was just me being my hand raised because I'm graduating. I forgot to put it down. Sorry.
Congratulations. Joshua, you have your hand up.
I think technically we maintain quorum until the question of quorum is raised. And if senators do not vote.
But the bills can't pass if we don't hit quorum. If I have a bunch of bills that aren't at quorum, they didn't pass because we didn't have enough people vote on them.
I mean, the undergraduate senate has had this issue and they would consider that just whoever is present before the matter of quorum is raised is all that's sufficient, as long as it's a majority of the votes. But I mean, I'm not sure how else we're gonna.
Go ahead.
I was looking at this earlier. Would a workaround be that we adjourn and then there's a clause in there about an emergency meeting and the threshold is lowered? Is that something we could do? We could adjourn, you
I
could call
think
an
you're
emergency
required
meeting.
in the code to give a 24-hour notice for an emergency
Okay,
meeting. I don't
okay.
think I'm allowed to just convene one randomly. It's a good idea. Duncan?
Continuing with the thought of the emergency meeting, what's the lower threshold for the emergency meeting? Point of information, obviously.
There is no threshold.
It's a simple majority of the units that have an elected senator. Right now, it's a simple majority of all representative units, including the ones that don't have vacancies filled. Right, I was looking at it earlier.
How many are we at, Luke?
29.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think this is gonna change.
Okay.
Motion to
Senators
adjourn.
who said they're still voting on the chat in about 2 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna hit 38 though.
That puts us at 32, but we're still 6 away.
Okay, to be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna do. So what we will do is we will allow those senators to vote. We will close the meeting, and then I will figure out what to do, and we might have to have an emergency meeting. So I don't know when that would be. That's just how this works. So if
Would you
I
prefer
determine
a
that
motion to adjourn, or would you prefer a motion for recess?
recess, I think it would be a motion to adjourn, and then we would reconvene in an emergency meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Any objections? Okay, well, you might not get rid of me just that quick. Okay. What's up? I can call an emergency meeting. There's provisions for this. I'm gonna do some Google. I'm gonna do some code reading. I'll email you whatever I decide we're gonna do. Okay. Well, on that matter, meeting adjourned.
Can we also thank President Hawkinson for and the rest of the executive committee for their work this year? Because
Katie, I would be happy to do some code digging with you if you want to work
Yeah,
on-
we should
on-
do that. I'm not, you can, we can convene an emergency committee of the people who might want to read the code and try to figure it out tomorrow.
I don't think we even need a committee. We have rules for how to convene if the solution is we're just gonna convene an emergency meeting. And try to get quorum at the emergency meeting. We have rules for that. But if we're gonna try to do this in a way that doesn't include an emergency meeting and just passes bills based on who voted during this Senate meeting, which, full disclosure, I don't think is the right solution. I don't think that's very transparent. But then we would really need people to be reading the code.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about it. It's so late now. We don't have to get too far into it.
Yeah. Maybe you and I can connect before the end of the week and hammer that out.
Yeah.
I'll text you.
Yeah, that sounds good. Awesome. I appreciate you. Also good job you defended. Since we didn't really
Thank
talk about
you.
the meeting.
Oh, I should have
Okay.
put Dr. Kendall Winter on my Zoom. God, stupid.
Missed opportunity. Okay.
I know,
Good night,
really
everyone
was.
on Zoom.
Bye-bye.
Bye.